Good morning. My name is Corey Cram. I'm the vice chair of the State Parks Board. Chairman Murray has asked that I conduct today. And so that's why you see that listed on your agenda, that I'm the chair, but I'm not the chair. I'll just be conducting. And so he's here to kick me on the table when we do something wrong, but he'll keep everybody on the straight and narrow. To start out with, just would like to introduce who's in the room here. We're conducting this meeting in person and also virtually, so this will be recorded and broadcasted. So to my right, Bob, you want to introduce yourself? We'll just kind of go around the room, if that's all right.
Yes, Bob Murray.
Doug Thompson from Logan.
Claudia Jarrett.
Brent Boswell.
Jeff Rasmussen with State Parks.
Dave Harris with State Parks.
Rachel Toker, handle the fiscal incentive grant.
Kevin Christensen.
Scott Strong with State Parks.
Amber Stubbs, Secretary of the Board. And Joan Hammer, I'm with Fox Thunder County Tourism.
Very good, thank you. And online we have Alicia Colthrop from our board and Natalie Randall also from our board. And others, let's see, we've got Wayne Jack, I see a name there, Ann Schlepp. And I saw earlier we had Wayne Monroe. Are you with us, Wayne?
That is Wayne Jack.
Oh.
I can see.
Yeah, it's still me. I just switched accounts.
Okay, very good. And then looks like we have some others here from within the building. Is that right? Can you guys take a chime in and tell us who you are?
Chairman, the other connections are part of the technical team.
Oh, very good. All right. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. And that voice is Paul. He's our IT guy to making all this happen. So we appreciate that. Thank you for that. And we've got an agenda, and we appreciate Amber putting all this together in this packet. You always do a wonderful job. So this agenda's been presented. If everybody had a chance to review that, I'd accept a motion to accept the agenda as it's presented.
I move we accept the agenda.
Okay, I've got a motion from Doug.
I'll second it.
A second from Chairman Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay, motion passed. And then moving on, we also have board meeting minutes from the May 20th, 2021 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Okay, I'd accept a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
Again, I do appreciate that Amber sends those out almost immediately after a meeting, so it's fresh on our minds and we can go over them quite carefully. And I did see a couple of really tiny little typo things and she's corrected them. I reviewed them.
We appreciate you watching those closely.
She's really good.
Yeah,
She is really good.
So I move approval of the minutes.
So I got a motion from Claudia, a second from Brent. All those in favor with accepting those minutes as presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed.
I want you to know I appreciate the fact that she's improving my vocabulary. Line and posits, I think that's remarkable.
Very good.
That's what good editors do.
So you can teach a dog new tricks or teach an old dog some new vocabulary.
Or an old
Teach it to him. You just corrected after this.
Okay, so we'll keep working on him. Let's go ahead with the board member reports. Kevin, do you mind starting for us?
Sure. So yeah, it's good to be face to face again, you know, after all of those online meetings. So I'm just glad to be part of the board. I don't have any real things to say about our park. I'm just glad we're getting some rain. Hopefully we can fill up our reservoirs. You know, Palisade Lake is really low. Yuba is really low, and the one ramp's closed.
Right.
We didn't even get our boat out this season because of the poor water conditions. So, you know, and then I know Paiute Reservoir didn't have hardly anything this year as well. And so I just, you know, they're the parks that I'm mostly concerned about is the ones that are primarily around water sports. I mean, I don't know how those parks can have very good revenues without that. It makes it really hard for them. So that's my only concern. And that's something we can't do anything about. So hopefully this new rain is a new trend, and hopefully next year we'll be better.
That's good. Brent, we go to you next.
I I've been by several of our parks, didn't attend any of them, and it caused me to think something, and maybe it's not possible or whatever, but, you know, we have the free pass, but it's only in the vehicle that you're in, and I find myself switching vehicles around all the time, and I'm going by a park, and I could stop it. I don't have my pass, so
Tell them who you are and they'll,
anything they let me,
I don't know, you're kind of, well, I don't know.
I don't have a very trusting demeanor.
They'll take your feet, Brad.
It'll work out. They will take a few, that's right.
But anyways, I got to think, gosh, we just have like a little ID card for our wallets that would serve as a pass like that, but because sometimes I'm in a county vehicle but yeah, it's fun to go around, and I was commenting to my wife, we have all these state parks and half of them would be national parks in other states, but we're just so blessed to have the Mighty Five already, but it's really cool to be a part of it, so.
We'll do like our former director, Fred Hayes, always did. He wasn't going there to recreate, we'd go there and use the restrooms because he always knew they were clean restrooms. So don't hesitate to swing by and use a restroom.
That's a good point,
I
so.
like the idea of that driver's license, that card.
I'll bring you something that I think both of you will really like here in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Claudia, can we go to you next?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I said I was going to go to Snow Canyon and that I was going to stay in a yurt, if you remember. So did go to Snow Canyon, and every time I go there, a new discovery. So the last time I recorded, I found out there were sand dunes there that I've driven by, I don't know, 100 times and never knew they were there. This time I went to the Petrified sand dunes. Didn't know they were ever there, but played on those.
They've been there for a long time.
Anyway, it was fun. It was a fun experience. And so on the way home, I took the long way and went by Paiute Reservoir State Park. That was an experience. I was almost scared to drive in there because the road was so rough and rotted and nobody camping there. And there was one of those tent TRs or whatever they are, nobody in it. I'm going, oh, this is kind of sad. I was just a little disappointed in Paiute. So anyway, I did go into Paiute. Nobody was there. No ranger, no people, nobody. And I just kind of turned around where I could and left. But I have been to Paiute.
There you go.
And then I did go to East Canyon and stayed in the yurt, and it was wonderful. I found a new favorite park, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a little off the beaten path. It isn't overpopulated with campers and stuff going on there. It just feels like home, like rural, like a little rural small community. And the park ranger there was awesome. We really enjoyed the yurt and the experience. Then my kids enjoyed it so much that for my granddaughter's birthday in the end of July, we went back up to East Canyon State Park and did the Aqua Island thing.
Right.
And they had a ball. They had an absolute ball on that. So water level was really down, but you could still play in the water on the shore. So we really enjoyed that. So one of my new favorite parks is East Canyon, and it's just because it's not overcrowded with a whole bunch of people. It really isn't. It's just relaxing, really relaxing. So anyway, that's my report.
So on the Petrified Dunes hike, did you see the areas that were just covered with all the little iron concretions, the Indian marbles?
Yes, they're awesome.
Aren't
Well,
those
no, I
neat?
guess I need a tour guide.
It's right up on top.
Yeah.
Well, we were inundated by a whole bunch of little kids that were just running and going up on there. You know, I'm not scary on my feet anymore. Is it easy to climb up there or what?
Oh, yeah.
Corey, what causes those marbles?
So those are iron concretions that formed in the sandstone layers, and then the sandstone weathered away, and the iron concretions are cemented better than the sandstone, and then it leaves them on the surface. That's why they're deposited.
So is it more to that way or that way of the
Is it down canyon?
It's down just a little bit, but it's,
down the canyon?
yeah, I'll send you some photos.
Okay.
And
I'll have to go back.
Is that what they call multi-marbles?
that's one of the terms.
Yeah.
Well, going back again, there's supposed to be St. George Marathon still planned. So I'll be back down there in the first of October, so.
Perfect.
We'll see if we can
Running?
find it. I don't run,
Oh.
I watch. My son runs, so. All right.
Doug, we'll go to you.
Thank you. We found those accretions over in Sand Hollow.
Especially over on the southeast side there.
Right, and we found a whole lot more of them before the water came.
Yep.
I've not been able to get to any parks this year for a lot of reasons, mainly family and busyness. But I have been keeping close track of what's happening over at Bear Lake, and they're having a booming year. And every time I drive by, there's just tons of people. And I did do a drive-by, and I was really amazed at the new traffic control at the marina. And that makes such great sense. It was such a jam and at times, and so dangerous. And so the new improvements there are fantastic. And I've heard great comments about what's been happening with Rendezvous Beach and over on Eden, and those are really nice improvements. I've read and heard from locals how busy and how nice Hiram has been. There have been several days that I've heard that they had to stop, further people coming in, and it looks very nice. I've also read about, and of course driven bike a lot, Willard Bay, and my son was really excited about going down to the Willard Bay Christmas lights. And got down there and in line, and they said, certainly you can come. You won't be able to get in for about an hour.
It's so big.
So they didn't
Very
go.
popular.
It's so busy and so great. Just one last thing. This is my last time with you all, and I want you to know how much I've enjoyed it. You are all great people. You all get people. I was going to say with a couple of exceptions, but that's not true.
Hey, you were looking at me when you said that too.
Okay, it's true. No, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great time, and I think just one overall thought. I remember back, I don't know how many years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when the state legislature said that state parks would be self-sustaining. And I really thought that was going to be the kiss of death. And instead, it has turned out to be a remarkable thing to make our park system stronger and better. And I think that the staff really needs to be credited for what they've done in order to pull that off. I mean, not failing, but they've been profitable. And it's been really amazing. And I don't know how many new parks have opened up since that time, but it's a lot. And I think you all the staff needs to, pat yourselves on the back for the great work you've done. And I just want you to know I've appreciated it. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Doug. And it's been good having you. It's been a good part of the board. And I guess that's, I think we've got a board and staff. You guys are always looking forward into the future and planning. We appreciate that. But also, I think it's worthwhile looking back and look at the accomplishments and look at, 10 years ago, the challenges that this group faced and where we've come and the attitudes that have been created and the philosophies, just the empowerment that you've done on the ground with our park managers and staff. And it's incredible to see where we've come and where we're at now and poised to move forward in the future. I appreciate those comments. Bob, want to go next first, please?
Yeah, I think Fred's slogan of more parks, visiting more parks more often, having more fun in more parks more often, I think it's truly come about because in our last meeting, we talked about how visitations have literally doubled and I'm watching Antelope Island, the campgrounds being expanded and the visitor center being expanded and all this money infused in our state parks. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is such a great time. And for all of us to experience these wonderful state parks and enjoy all that they have to offer. I spent some time in July at Yuba Lake. Took a youth group down to Yuba and set up some canopies, caught some fish. The water was really low. We could walk clear out there and still only be waist high or so. But gosh, it was so refreshing and so fun. And we just had a blast. And still haven't done the zip line at Yuba. I'd love to do that. that was really the only park that I went to. I did go to Coral, or Capitol Reef rather, and did a couple of great hikes at Capitol Reef. But there's so much to offer in our state parks, great hikes and great opportunities. And like Doug, I've been on the board for the last 8 years, and I've absolutely loved it. It's just been a blast. We've had a lot of really wonderful experiences together, and reviewed lots of policies together, and approved lots of policies, and that's what this board is all about. And I just really appreciated the association with everyone. It's really been a great time. I feel blessed, really blessed to have been on the State Parks Board for the last 8 years.
Thank you. Can we go online? Alicia, could you go next? Do you mind?
Hey everyone. I'm so sad I am not there in person. I was so looking forward to that, but it was just a bit too rainy when I got ready to leave at 5:15 this morning, so I couldn't make it. Wow, what a summer. It's been busy, and it's our state parks have been really busy. They're now pretty much out of water, so at least for the two that are the water parks. So that's going to kind of cut the season short a little bit. I personally was only able to go boating on Red Fleet one time, and then I went paddleboarding a couple of other times. But I just love that park, and I'm really excited for the remodel that will start here soon. I think it's going to just not that park is not already so popular, but it's just going to add even more, and it's going to be a really nice asset to the state. The Fieldhouse Museum, they were able to recover an entire tree, at least like the base of the tree, not the leaves, but the base, here over the last several months, and they were able to have a big showing of that. Dave Harris was able to come out for that, and it's just an incredible find for them, and really cool for them to be able to have on display. The trunk is, I don't know how big it is. I was looking earlier to see if it was somewhere, but I mean, it's a great big giant petrified tree trunk, and that's a really awesome find for them, and something new for them to have in their collections. And you know, I haven't been to Fred Hayes State Park this summer in my area, but I have driven by a few times, and they seem to be busy as well. There's always boats on the water when I go there. I know they have their big Walleye Classic tournament here coming up in a couple of weeks that I would love to make it over to if I can make that work. And it's fun to drive by all these state parks. It's a little bit sad as I drive through the canyons and see some of the water parks, and they're just almost completely dry. So this rain, while I can't be there in person because the rain was a bit much today, I'm glad that we're getting some rain, and hopefully it's going to help fill those reservoirs like so many of you have already talked about. And Doug, we're going to miss you on the board. It's been fun serving with you over the last several years. I hope that you're going to enjoy your time with your family and continue living in Logan and just having a good time. So we'll miss you on the board, and hopefully next time I'll be able to come in person. It'll probably be snowing then, so who knows? But it's great to see all of you virtually.
Thank you, Alicia. Natalie, can we go next to you?
Morning, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to join virtually this board meeting as well. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but it's good to see everybody on Zoom land or Google Hangouts. I didn't have much time to go and visit many of the parks, but the summer months are definitely hot in our area. So high temperatures, and I've heard that that's reduced some of the visitation, but I was reading through the reports that all of the managers push out, and so grateful for the time that they take to pull that together for when we're unable to go into the parks in person. It was interesting to read about Dead Horse State Park, that even with the reduced visitation, that all of those yurts still remain full and to capacity. And then also just being able to read the update about Schofield. I was driving through that canyon during that fire and was thinking about the state park as I was passing through that back in June after our May board meeting, and was happy to hear that there weren't any evacuations, but again, appreciate the reports that came out of that. And just wanted to also just do a quick shout out to Jeff. We just had our state Utah tourism conference in Ogden, and Jeff was gracious enough to join a panel discussing the public lands and just increased visitation and all the visitors who are new to nature. I guess that's the term we're using now, and how to manage that and to move forward with that. It was a great panel that included Superintendent Fritzke from Capitol Reef, Greg, who's the Utah director for the BLM, and then Sean Harward with the Forest Service out of Ogden. So a great panel, great to have state parks representation there. Jeff did a great job. I've been receiving some texts of feedback on that panel and the gratefulness for the public lands to be a part of that conference. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. In my work in the water work, my chairman at home, he has a saying, and he says that when you have a growing community and challenges, you have many challenges, many difficulties to face. But if you have no water, you only have one challenge. And we kind of see that in our world here too, with this challenges over the past year. And we appreciate this rain, but the snow is what does it for us in our area. And down our way, we also have another saying that says, a nice sunny winter golf day in Washington County is a crappy day for a water manager. So just keep it in perspective, Coach. I really appreciate our parks, and I in my work I get to visit particularly Quail Creek and Sand Hollow a lot, and then also Gunlock a little bit to a lesser extent, and still drop in on our other areas as well, including Snow Canyon. I'm always just amazed at the number of visitors that we're having and the change in visitation and the challenges in our parks where we see a lot of turnover in our personnel and moving people around. And I'm amazed with our park managers and their ability to deal with this and keep things going. And such a dynamic world that we live in. And I just really appreciate the things our park managers in particular are doing to keep things going without a hitch. And there's so many things going on with the events that they're managing and the day-to-day stuff with policy and people and things that we just never see, and the public never appreciates the seamless operation that's taking place out there. And there's some little teeny hiccups here and there, but it's amazing what a good job that they're doing. At both Quail Creek and Sand Hollow, we have some big expansions right around the corner with some campgrounds and some good things happening. Super excited for that. Gunlock seen some good things, some expansion there. And anyway, just good things in the works, and just so proud mainly of all of our people that we have out there. And credit to you guys with leadership and the culture you create at the top, and the people we have on the ground that are just committed to their work and so positive, and just great to be a part of things. And I've sure enjoyed my time on the board, and it's just great to be a part of this organization, you as a board and staff and everybody, and just a class operation. And we appreciate all that you guys do to make things happen here. With that, I guess let's transition. Well, we already got Bob, didn't we? Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah.
I have to say, I was in Hurricane yesterday and I did pass Sand Hollow, and I wish that I would have had the time to stop and play at the park. And we also passed Anasazi State Park too, in another activity that I was involved in, and wished at that time too that I could stop and visit.
Anasazi's neat. There's
But
a lot there.
It's really, they're dotting our state, and I love it.
Yep, very good. With that, let's transition to our division report. Scott, you're first on the list. We go to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman, or Vice Chairman. I'm sorry.
You call me the left-hand man.
I do want to just talk about a few things, a couple of appreciations and a shout out or two before I get into the meat of what I'll be talking about today. But it was great to see you, Alicia, last week for a couple of days and connect with you. That was really great. I didn't get to say hi to you, Natalie, at the conference, but you did a fantastic job Natalie kind of put the conference together and was managing it. She was just everywhere. I think at one point I was sweating because she was running around so much. Anyway, it was great. And Joan probably doesn't remember, but we were in a breakout session together. So it's nice to have you two with us today too. And then Bob, I thought it was great that we had a few minutes at Darren's retirement to talk, and just appreciated you being there and supporting Darren and also laughing at my jokes. That was really nice.
I was the only one.
Wow. At least I had one. I'll take what I can.
It's a start.
Yeah.
I've always supported you.
Well, and it's very much appreciated, and Doug too. One of the things that I love about this board is the engagement that all of you have in state parks. And I consider you friends and lifelong friends. I don't anticipate that once you leave the board that those friendships will also, end, but look forward to those future relationships. And, Brent, everyone is always welcome at our parks, whether you have a pass or, like Bob said, you can always just pay the fee. So I was lucky enough to visit several state parks and just echo what all of you have seen. I go to Antelope Island State Park often and do some hikes there. And I love what you said about the restrooms, Bob. And it's so true what Fred said too, that every state park that I go to, the restrooms are just spotless.
I think Corey said that, didn't you?
Sorry, Corey.
But I agree.
Yeah, and I was able to stay at the cabin at East Canyon State Park a couple of weeks ago. And Claudia, I echo what you said too. I will say, in addition to your experience, it's so funny or interesting to me that our park managers create those atmospheres that we just walk into, and it feels so inviting and welcoming. But it doesn't just happen. It's interesting to see the work and effort that goes into it behind the scenes. But again, when I was at East Canyon, I had some of the same experiences. The lawn was in perfect condition. The campsites were in.
They're laid out so nice. They're not like.
Yeah.
It's such a well-planned and designed park.
And then
you just don't want it to change too much. It's so nice.
It's really quaint, but you'd be surprised at how many people are there. There are all these pullouts around the state park, and there are a lot of people there. It's so spread out. It doesn't feel crowded. And then the park manager, Chris Haramoto, is so good at welcoming people and bringing services. I don't know if you had a chance to kind of drive around the park, but he has cabins and yurts and a camper trailer and Conestoga wagons and the bouncy stuff on the reservoir. And anyway, Chris just does a fabulous job. And it's a lot of hard work.
Did you have a snow cone? Don't get the blue raspberry because it makes your whole mouth and
but I bet it tasted great.
That's the fun of it.
Oh, no.
Then I also had a chance to stay in the new cottage that we have at Jordanelle State Park, and I would encourage each of you to try that new experience. It's very different than any other experience you'll have in our state park. This stems from a conversation that we had at Dead Horse Point State Park with Senator Hinkins, and he talked about how neat it was to have these yurts in our state park, but his wife would never come because she's not going to go across the parking lot at 2:00 in the morning to use the restroom. So these cottages have restrooms, bathrooms in them, as well as a loft and a master bedroom. So it's just a neat experience. And where they have them at Jordanelle State Park, you look out and you see the reservoir. It's an amazing view and so quiet and peaceful, kind of like your experience at East Canyon State Park, Claudia. And then lastly, I was able to play a couple of holes of golf at Wasatch Mountain golf course, which was just fabulous. And they do, just like our state parks, provide such a neat experience up there. So anyway, I wasn't going to really mention that, but after hearing some of these board reports, I wanted to share my experiences. I'm like Jeff and Dave, we all enjoy outdoor recreation and are in our parks often. So, but appreciate your reports. And now I'll just jump into my report. I'll try to get through it quickly. Amber says that I talk too fast about the numbers, but there are going to be some numbers and these will be in the notes. So if you want to go back and look at them, you can do that. I want to talk about the operating profit and loss from the last few years. And I want to give you a little bit of perspective. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit to fiscal year 2019. In 2019, our operating profit was just over $8 million. In fiscal year 2020, our operating profit was 8.7, almost $8.8 million, which is an 8.5% increase. And anybody who is in the private sector would say that an increase of 8 to 10% year after year is just, yeah, you'd love to be in a business like that. And then we get our fiscal year 2021, which we just finished. And I've talked to Jeff about this several times. I don't know how many times I've doubled and tripled checked these numbers. But last year, our operating profit was $19.7 million, which is an increase of 120%, 126% over last year.
Slackers.
Which, I think.
They wanted to get out. They wanted to get out of their houses and get in fresh air.
And the interesting thing about that is I completely agree, Claudia, is that we've seen that trend continue. I thought that we would see incremental increases, but to see another huge jump like that is just incredible. And I'm going to steal Doug's word for today, which is booming. Our parks are booming, and that's a testament. That number is a testament to the number of visitors that we've been hosting. And also really a huge hat off to our staff who are in the parks hosting these visitors. And a lot of them, like Natalie said, are new to the outdoor world. So there's a lot of education and contact with these visitors, which is just incredible. Many of you will remember that we have an incentive award that's tied to the profit and loss. And what that is if a park increases their profit or loss by $1 or more, they're eligible for an incentive award, which is equivalent to $750. It's a nice thing. It's something that just doesn't happen in state government, but over 90% of our staff will be eligible for that incentive award, which is just, again,
Great.
fantastic. There's a direct correlation between the profit and loss, the operating profit and loss, and our visitation. And I just wanted to let you know that our visitation, we've seen an increase of 112% over the last 5 years, and then growth from last year to this year is 39%. So while we are getting more people, we're also doing a better job of offering services that people want to pay for and are willing to pay for. Again, you talk about the Aqua X experience on the water. That generates more and more net income by offering those services, which is great. Any questions about the numbers? To me, they're staggering.
So do we think that those numbers will go down in a year?
As
we get out of this COVID stuff?
We're not getting out of COVID, Kevin.
I don't see it. I mean, the population of Utah is continuing to grow exponentially. They can't build enough homes to house all the people that want to come here. And that population is going to continue to increase. And they haven't attended state parks likely. And so I think the visitations are going to continue. Are we ready for that?
Well, let me get to all those points, Bob. First off, I totally agree that the population is growing and a lot of people are coming from out of the state. During the conference that Natalie hosted, there was a lot of discussion about why people come to Utah, and it's for the outdoor recreation. So I see that the population is growing. There's a demand for recreation services. And then the second part of both of your questions is we're expanding parks.
Yeah.
We're building more parks. We're building additions to the parks that we have. So yes, I fully expect that growth will continue. Do I think that we're going to have 126% next year? That would be a great problem to have. I don't know that it'll grow that quickly, but for the last 11 or 12 years, I've always said I can't believe that we haven't hit the ceiling. And every one of those years, we've exceeded what we did the previous years. So,
Scott, I'd just like to expand on one of the points that Bob made. And I think that as more people actually experience state parks, they're going to say, wow. And they're going to want to come back again and want to go to more parks. And I just think that's going to be happening. And I mean, you know, 30 years ago, I was kind of a state parks skeptic. I liked the Mighty Five. And then I started going to see the other parks. And I was absolutely amazed. I think that's going to happen with a lot of people. I may be unusual, but not that weird.
That first visit is the most expensive in business. Get them in your door the first time is where the advertising dollars are the most expensive. So now they've been forced to go because of COVID. I think that first visit's out of the way, and like you say, I think it's going to keep growing too.
Yeah, it's been discovered. And as Corey knows, down in the southwest part of the state, we're getting a lot of out-of-state visitors.
Yeah.
And that's created some problems, but nothing we can't manage. So, so if we're moving on, I want to talk about just a quick legislative update as far as right now we're going through the process of identifying the projects that we want to request funding for during the upcoming session. We've got 5 requests. Those 5 requests total $16,250,000 or $250,000. Sorry, my world of dollars are a lot smaller than these ones. So 16.25.
Those decimal points to kill you, right?
Yeah, zeros and decimal points every time. So it's another big ask. We've continued to do that over the past few years to ask for that money from our restricted account. And some of you are a little bit newer, but our restricted account is money that we put in what we call a bank account, and that money comes from all the fees that our visitors pay at the gate and for the services they enjoy at state parks. So that's money that we've generated, and then we invest that back into.
So all this increase stays within the state parks?
It does. Yeah, you've heard talk about how we're self-sufficient, and that's really unique to the state of Utah. Other park systems don't run like that, but we operate off of the money that we collect at the gate. Very cool. And just to be brief, because these projects haven't been approved by the governor's office and they haven't been to the legislature yet, but the projects in general are about adding staff, which makes a lot of sense. We have more visitors coming to our staff or to our parks, and we need to maintain the customer experience as well as the facilities. We also, like Bob mentioned, we're in a housing crisis. Affordable housing just doesn't exist in the state of Utah. We were experiencing a lack of housing or the availability of housing in the past, but now it's the availability and the cost. So we're looking at solutions as far as how we can have more housing, whether that's temporary housing for our seasonal staff or full-time staff, but we're looking at that, as well as operational costs. Of course, those variable costs when we have and host more visitors, they're going to go up. And then we're also going to work on an expansion project at Deer Creek State Park, which will be a huge project in conjunction with the VOR. So that's really exciting. Any questions about those requests that we're sending to the legislature? Okay.
I have, an aside question. With our substantial profits, has the legislature started looking at those as potential pools of money to spend elsewhere?
That's a great question, and something that we think about often. Jeff and Dave and I talked about that. Fred and Jeff and I talked about that in the past. And what we do is we try to reinvest that money that we've generated back into state parks. So these $16 million asks that we've gone to the legislature for are drawing down that balance. And the interesting thing with that, though, is there's a correlation between that investment and then, we're adding more services. So we haven't found that sweet spot where we want to get with our bank account, but we're getting there. And a lot of it is this year, as you've seen here, we're investing in staff, which is huge, and we need to do that.
we have a saying in Logan that if you drop a quarter in Logan, it rolls to Salt Lake. And I was just worried that the legislature might come after our pool of money.
Yeah, no, it's something that's been on our radar for a long time. But our committee, our legislative committee is super supportive, and they understand, well, it's really their mandate that they've given to us to operate on the funds that we've generated. And I think when we go up there, they celebrate that fact that we're doing exactly what we've been asked to do, and we've been very successful at it. And I think, Doug, you mentioned that we were doubting at the beginning of this process whether or not it would work, and it's working exceptionally well. So
The other benefit of having money in that account is if this drought continues or we have something else that has a major impact on visitation, then we can rely on that fund to pay our operating costs while we get through whatever that challenge might be. And so there is more of a reason to have something in that account to fall back on, because generally there isn't general fund money available. So that was the other side of why that account was created and why there needs to be a balance in it. We talk to legislators about that all the time.
Having been out of politics for a number of years, during the legislature, I still have a habit of looking over my shoulder. Because I'm worried about them taking money, and if there's a pool of available money, they seem to be quite adept at using it.
And I think Jeff makes a good point. We've been able to describe and explain to them what that money is there for. And they've been, again, very supportive in saying, yeah, we won't touch that. We get it.
I think the culture of the legislature in Utah is to have a rainy day fund anyway. They've always consistently tried to have that as a culture in Utah and in the legislature. So I think that supports you having a restricted account and drawing from it.
Yeah, another great point. And it's something that we haven't had in the past. 10 or 15 years ago, we only had a few $1 million in that account. Now we have over $20 million in the account, which allows us to do neat things as well as to have that security net behind us. So the next thing I want to talk about really quickly is just Parks Pass. We've talked about it on the last board meeting or two, but just a quick progress report and some examples. Dave and Jeff always show pictures, and I've been a little jealous. So I thought, hey, I'm going to bring some pictures today. So this is a bag that was designed and printed by the Parks Pass students, which I think, I don't know what you think, but I'm just so impressed with the way the design work that they've done. And they're more nimble than we are, which means that in state government, we have to use specific contractors and all these sorts of things, and they're able to go to their local vendor and do something like this very quickly after it's been designed. So, and then if you can show the next one, this is a t-shirt design. So this is the front and back of how the t-shirt will look, and then the next slide is the actual t-shirt. And if you can, I don't know if you can, I can't see that far, but if you can see the tiles, each one of those tiles represents a state park, and it's near where the state park is located. So it's just a really fun idea. We are going to sell these t-shirts at most of our state parks. All of our state parks that have a retail operation have shown interest in wanting to sell them to the public. And I think these are going to be huge sellers. And then the Utah Raptor State Park t-shirt, as well as a bag and shirts and that other kind of stuff, I think is going to be really popular too.
Where's it going to be available?
I'm gathering the numbers right now for the quantities that we'll be ordering, so they will be available soon. And I'll get t-shirts for the board too. So anyway,
and passport,
It's pretty small there.
and passport members.
We can't make everyone big. We love them all.
Are you sure you're gonna stay at 46? Every time the legislature makes that number jump, so.
But that's the great thing about retail, right? You want to add more, so now you got.
It's why the Jeff changes the colors a little bit every time.
Yeah. So that, this will be the 2021, the 2022.
Yeah, people wearing the Mark Eaton jersey to the game, you gotta switch it around.
Exactly.
I don't know where they fit in another tile on the map.
Well, we need to go back to the state of Deseret, and we can have a
The
bigger.
territory. Yeah, I like that. So they're doing neat things like designing T-shirts and stickers and all kinds of retail items. And it's so much fun to work with the students and to be able to design those in-house and then be able to turn around and sell them to our park visitors.
It'd be fun to have magnets like that people could buy at each park and put them on their fridge in that same assembly.
Yeah, and that we've got all kinds of, we're gonna make park-specific stickers, we're gonna have park-specific shirts, and we'll be able to do all those sorts of things, Brent. We're also, with the Parks Pass project, we're still working on Wi-Fi. We're working on bringing Wi-Fi to Snow Canyon State Park into an area where they've never had connectivity. And if you've been there and tried to make a cell phone call or get a hold of somebody, it's just impossible. This will enable that. We're finding that we have lots and lots of users who have adopted the Parks Pass app. We've done almost no advertising, and people come to the park, see the QR code, and are installing the app on their phone when they get to the park, which is really neat. And then Kevin and Brent, both of you talked about, I'd love to have a small card or something I can put in my pocket. Well, I think most all of us always have our phones with us. So one of the features of Parks Pass is to have an electronic annual pass on your phone. So you'll be able to have that no matter which vehicle you're in or where you go.
You just have to remember your phone.
Well, that's impossible to forget. We would, right? If I find it on my phone, I would drive home now and get it and come back to work. So that's great. That's Kevin and I are old school thinking of a physical. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So, and it's
But just save cost to print them.
Yeah, distribution, printing, all of that is taken.
Could you buy a pass on your phone, go to an app and buy the pass and all of a sudden you have it on your phone? And
That's what the original concept was with Parks Pass, and was just expounded upon it. So you'll be able to buy your day use pass, an annual pass. You'll be able to rent a kayak or a canoe at the Palisades State Park or East Canyon State Park. You'll be able to do all that stuff before you even get to the park. And by doing that, we'll give the visitor more information before they arrive at the park.
same time getting in the gate. That's great.
Yeah. And the user experience, I think, is much better when we do it that way too, because you don't arrive at the park and say, oh, wow, I didn't know they had this, or I'd like to do that, or I guess, maybe next time I'll do that. But they'll be able to see it right there.
Scott, I was just thinking that wonderful graphic of the Utah state and then all of the state parks within the state of Utah. It would be really cool, I think, to have some kind of a website interaction where people could go to that logo, click on the state park that they want to go to, and have it pop up with a video or all kinds of an explanation about that state park. That could be a great website interface, I think.
I like that. I'll talk with our folks about having that logo and then embedding links and videos.
It takes them right to that state park.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you. And then just lastly, a quick update with some of my direct staff. I wanted to let you know that Debbie Stuffelbeam, who is our financial manager, she's going to retire at the end of December, which will be a great loss. Debbie is fantastic. She is such a hard worker and has so much knowledge and skills, many skills. I'm going to personally miss her and just really wanted to publicly thank her in this meeting today and let you know that she was leaving, as well as Mike Long, who's our concession program manager, has decided to stop working for state parks and go teach Spanish.
Oh my gosh.
At his local junior high. So I wish him well.
He may be back.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Give him another boomerang.
Yeah. I don't know if many of you know that, but it's funny you bring it up for you. Mike has been back and forth with us a couple of times, right? So this is like home. He leaves and then he comes back. So, but we do wish Mike well. And then just on a personal note, what's that? Soon. I'll get with it. Yeah. I haven't made that announcement to everyone yet. So, but we'll be talking about that later. And then just lastly, on a more personal note, many of you know that Justina has had several health issues that she's dealing with. And I just wanted to mention her today, that she's in our thoughts and prayers. And she is such a gregarious and hardworking, and she is a fighter. And I'm pulling for her. I know a lot of, well, everyone in the division is thinking about her, but just wanted to let you know about that. She's undergoing her last, hopefully, session or round of chemotherapy right now, and is kind of struggling. So if you did have a minute to send her a note, I think that would be really nice. That's the end of my report, unless there are additional questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Will you give us information of how to send her a note?
I will.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd like to do that as well.
Thank you, Scott. Dave, can we go to you next for our report?
And thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to hear your updates and from a different perspective as you visit and go past the parks. Always good to hear those. I've got a lot to talk about later on, so I'm gonna try to keep this short for this. But just wanted to say, hats off to our field staff, and it's good to see some here today. Steve Bullock is our lieutenant for the law enforcement program here in the main office. Laura, you probably know, is our North Region Manager, and Wayne's online there somewhere, the Southwest Region Manager. So I'm glad to see they're there and participating today. Just a ton of stuff going on. Hopefully you had a chance to look through the park reports and the region reports that Amber sends out and that all the staff put together. But I just wanted to pick a few things out of that. There was literally dozens of rescues and life-saving events, but two of them that stuck out in my mind this year were at Dead Horse Point. We had 2 folks hit by lightning up at the point, and our staff obviously were the first ones there, and we were able to stabilize them until the ambulance could come and take them into town. Or I can't remember if they might have been helicoptered out, but anyway, those just our staff being there and ready and willing to deal with that. And then up at Bear Lake, we had a former legislator's family that was rescued during a really bad storm by our rangers up there. I think there's like 14 people on the boat, and the boat swamped, and they were all in the water and all climbed up on a tube, and they were rescued. So that was those were 2 ones that stuck out in my mind anymore. There was literally dozens of other rescues. So just an example of what our folks are doing out there every day. And then since our last board meeting, I think a few folks have mentioned about, staff shortages and different things, but we've got a lot of movement going on in our division right now. We've had 12 new hires or promotions since our last board meeting, just as an example. And we still have 11 vacancies right now. So we're hiring a lot of in-house folks. So when you fill a position, you just created another opening for yourself, right? It's good to see those folks moving around. But we have had, a number of new folks from the outside coming in. It's good to get new blood as well. In the last little bit, we have opened 5 new positions. I can't say we've created them. They were ones that were cut, many years ago when we had our budget cut in whatever year that was. But we put 2 new law enforcement positions at Sand Hollow, which has been overrun by folks, and 1 new law enforcement position up at Jordanelle State Park, and then kind of a little bit of focus on maintenance. We added a full-time maintenance position to Bear Lake and to Goblin Valley State Park, so to complement their staffs. And with the legislature this year, there was a change that we can no longer. Well, I guess you can still have. It's kind of weird how it's worded, but anyway, we have to consider experience as much as education now and degrees. So we've opened up our park manager series, ranger through manager series, up to those that have equal experience to a degree. And it's a statewide law; it's not just for state parks. So how we deal with that is 4 years of comparable experience or a 4-year degree. And that started in May. I think that law took effect. And so far we've hired 2 park managers, 1 assistant manager, and 1 ranger under that new law. So it seems to be working well. We're getting some really good experienced folks coming into it, and kind of opens up our pool, which sometimes has been a little bit low. Just around the state, I thought I give some updates that they're in your board packet, but I thought I just hit a couple of the highlights in case you don't get a chance to dig deep into that. Our law enforcement program is very active, and of course, this time of year, everybody brings all their problems from home and they bring it to the campground, right? Wherever they're recreating. But just in the North region alone, this last quarter, since our last region meeting, there's been 31 critical incidents, and 6 of those, unfortunately, were drownings. So, and then they had 10 specialized law enforcement events, which could be like a saturation patrol or a checkpoint. Operation Dry Water occurred in this last quarter, and that's a nationwide effort on getting intoxicated boaters off the water. And but anyway, out of all those that they've had since our last board meeting, they found 556, citations, arrests for safety issues, alcohol, drugs, all kinds of other weird things incidental to that. But hats off to those folks being out there and trying to keep everybody safe on the water and on the land. A lot of those off-highway vehicle checkpoints as well.
The revenue from tickets, does that stay in state parks also?
A portion of it does.
A small portion. Some of it goes to the police academy where they train the new officers, and then I think the county keeps some. And it gets divvied up.
The courts take a lot of it.
And then just from around the state, I picked a couple things for each region. At Antelope Island State Park, they've opened 4 backcountry primitive camps this last week, and they I think it was through. I think it was down at the EDS we had it down in St. George where we had the Shark Tank thing, and I think they won the thing to have their stage. So I think some of you were involved in the judging of that. So anyway, if you could play this video. This is from Camp Floyd last weekend for Military Appreciation Day. So cool. It was the stage that was built from that funding. Just we're not going to be able to hear it.
I know.
I think their minds.
We might be able to.
Well, there you go.
I might have to turn off them.
We all know it's the Bugle Boy, right?
Yep, that's the song.
Oh, it's echoing.
But anyway, it gives you an idea of some of the things our folks put on in the parks, and this one was in honor of veterans and the military.
Yeah.
In addition to that, they had military vehicles and probably shooting the cannons and all the other stuff that they do up there. So anyway, thanks Rachel for playing that. At Yuba State Park, they just opened a new primitive day use and camping area called Oasi Vista, and that's being used by the public now, and it can be booked through reservations. So it's a new opportunity there at Yuba. And at the Utah Field House, Alicia mentioned it, but if you can bring that up, the picture of the fossil log. This is really a neat find and quite an operation to. The thing was almost totally buried, like in sandstone. They had to dig it out and figure out how to transport it. You get it into the inside of the museum. And even from the details of what would the museum floor hold it, it's between 5 and 8 tons. I've heard both numbers, so I'm not sure how big it is and weight wise. And then Coral Pink State Park. I didn't have any pictures, but the sand squatch. I think there's a picture in your thing. It's been a really big hit. It's like a Bigfoot, but they call it the sand squatch. And people from all over the country are going out there and finding it. And, they have T-shirts, kind of like what Scott showed, but honor the sand squatch, and they can't keep them in stock. There's so many people who want to come buy those.
I wear that a lot more proudly than a swimmer's itch T-shirt.
And then at Dead Horse Point, one of our kind of interpretive type parks, they're really happy to be back doing interpretive programs. They've done some star parties, guided hikes, and geology talks, and several of those events have had over 100 people attend. So people are ready to accept those kind of events again. So that's just kind of a brief synopsis of what's going on around the state. Definitely look through your package. There's a lot of nice pictures in there and tons of other things that are going on. One thing we did this we try to have I used to call it a region managers meeting to get the region managers together and chief of law enforcement and just discuss things. And we'd only have try to do it in one day. And by the time everybody travels, you have, 3 or 4 hours to meet. So we tried a 2-day event up at Jordanelle, and thanks to Lori for helping host it up there at Jordanelle. But we called an operational leadership meeting, and Jeff and Scott and I, Megan, Wayne and Lori and Christopher Quick, our chief of law enforcement, met for 2 days. Had great tours of Deer Creek and Jordanelle. The other region managers got to see, what different things happen in different parks, and got to talk about a lot of issues over the 2 days. So it went really well. We didn't get through our agenda, but we're planning another one in St. George in December. So we'll be down your way, and hopefully we can finish off that agenda and get through all the other issues that come up between now and then. Some of the projects that are being worked on by our leadership group, and if you want to throw that sign up, Lori Backus is kind of overseeing our state sign project. And we I think up to this last year, we had probably done 7 or 8, and we're working on 15 more through last fiscal year. And we've got in the 40s now, almost 50 signs that we need. So we'll be over half done here maybe by the end of this fiscal year.
This is kind of a standardized design.
Yes, the park can pick the kind of the shape and color of the rock kind of match. Then we design the inside part with the park input.
Are visitors using those signs like the national parks where they're stopping and running over and get their picture taken?
Yes, we've already seen.
And then do they have the little stump like the national parks have? You put your phone on your camera.
I haven't seen.
They have because it's such good PR on social media.
They've come out really nice, and unfortunately, we had a drunk driver take one out already.
Oh my goodness.
I guess that's right. You get something nice, and somebody gonna ruin it for you.
Dave, I think this is so wonderful because what it does is it sets a standard. It sets a branding for all of the state parks, and it brings a uniformity to who we are and our presentation to the public.
It's really a project. This was a military appreciation day photo too. A lot of the parks had their entrance lined with American flags. Anyway,
Bob, that's exactly what we did. We wanted that consistency and branding and image so that you know when you're at the stadium.
Yeah, that's great. So great.
And Wayne Monroe is working on bus and van tours for our staff. He's got a passion for mentoring and keeping folks.
The bands come back together, huh?
Yes, we tried it last year. We had all the plans put together, but with the COVID, we couldn't do it. So now we're shooting for November. There'll be one tour. We have over 40% of our staff have less than 5 years and haven't been around to all the parks or even all the parks even in their region. So I think the Southeast region is going to host one of the tours, and it'll be a larger tour for newer staff, less than 5 years. And then there will be another, more of a band tour, a smaller group that'll just be newer managers. And then those will go on a different type of tour, looking at different things and learning about the management of the parks and how other managers might do something, and they might learn something or take something to another park that helps that park out. So those are the goals of those. We used to do them, maybe 20 years ago was the last one we did, or 15 years ago. I'm not sure how long ago, but we want to bring those back with so many new staff and get everybody exposed to what others are doing and the
That's really good.
practices that they found.
I know with our work, our office staff, they just love getting out and seeing things. I mean, you get a boring accountant out on the ground, and to see something, they just love to appreciate what they're processing, what they're doing, and they can appreciate what's going on, and it's worth a lot. And and it's just nice to rub shoulders together and to spend time with each other, and the stuff that happens on the side is worth a lot. I think that's really commendable. It's good.
Megan, our Southeast region manager, she's working on a virtual managers academy. We traditionally had an in-person managers academy, and for the managers to learn new tricks or even the old tricks if they're a new manager. She's taking that virtual, and she's working on that project. We hope to have done here in the next couple of months. And Christopher, our chief of law enforcement and the law enforcement program, is working on updating and improving our field officer training program. When somebody graduates from post and given a badge and a gun, there's a lot more they have to deprogram that they learned in post and reprogram for the way we do things, and they do an awesome job at that. But we're trying to make it more portable between regions. So if a new ranger moves from one place to another, he's getting the same requirements, same training, the same standards. And then also looking at ways to maybe usually it's just kind of done on the job training. If somebody has a free day, they try to meet up. We're trying to make it more structured to where maybe a certain period of time where that ranger is focused on learning all those tasks. And it even goes to temporary housing. If, we can put them somewhere where there's concentrated OHV use for a couple days. They get that down. We can send them down to Lake Powell or something where there's just, there's so much boating, you can learn it all in a couple days or a week and get a good background there. So that's kinds of stuff they're looking at on changing. And then some things we're all working on. We're splitting up the division guidelines. They haven't been reviewed for many years, and reviewing and trying to get those up to date, finalized. So that's kind of where we're at on the operational side of things. Thank you for your time.
Tell us a little bit about hiring, and we see a lot of places that are having a hard time hiring people, inflation, cost of living. How's it going with filling vacancies, and what are the biggest challenges? Is it the location that people are struggling to move to with taking a family or a dual income family into a more remote location, or is it the salaries, or what are the challenges that you see with that kind of stuff?
We have a number of challenges. We're not seeing a lot of movement within our agency. We're getting some, but folks, they get settled. Their kids are in high school or junior high, or their wife has a really good job, or those things hold some folks back. Surprisingly, though, we announced most of our jobs as public recruitment now, and we're getting a lot of folks from other states. We've had people admit it right in the interviews. They're from California, Washington State, the Seattle areas. My family's not safe there. We're just looking to move out, and they even admit that in interviews. Sometimes you kind of hesitate, but we've had that. But on the flip side, we especially some of our law enforcement, we always hear that our salaries are lower than everybody else's, and they are. But we're getting many applicants from other law enforcement agencies that would take a big pay cut to come work for us, because we have, it's outdoors, you're doing those fun things, you're not putting up with the stuff you're putting up with in the cities. So, unfortunately, a lot of them don't have a single lick of park experience, but they're looking. So that's encouraging there. So those are where I see some of our biggest challenges. The housing is definitely a challenge. We have every time we have an opening. Man, if there was a house that you guys had in St. George, I'd be down there in a minute. Or we have an opening in Schofield right now, which is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But we've been creative, and some of the tiny homes that we've gotten over the last year or so, we've been able to use those for staff housing. So a couple of our rangers are staying in those, and we've got a couple trailers that we bought, and some of those are temporarily anyway staying in those until they can figure out a place to live. Like we had a new ranger go out to Duchesne at Fred Hayes State Park, and there was like nowhere to rent, nowhere to buy, single kid, late 20s or whatever. So we were able to arrange a trailer for him to stay in until he could get that figured out.
And I've said it before, but those reports by the region and each park are amazing. They really are. They're so informative, and it makes you feel like you've been to the park where you haven't been to the park. So kudos to them, because they not only say the challenges, but what are the good things going on at their parks too. So I always have appreciated that piece that comes with our packet. So thank you for continuing that. I know we had a discussion once, should we continue to do that, but I'm glad we are.
It may be a pain for them to put it together, but we love it and we appreciate it. I think everybody reads it, and Amber, you do a great job with putting it all together.
It's a trickle up thing. I'm sure the region manager are pulling teeth to get those, and but it all comes together. It's definitely worth it.
The links are so fun if you take the time to click on them. I found out about the big log trees because I clicked on like I saw Jeff giving this huge little epistle about state park. It was amazing. So I didn't know he could speak like that so well.
We have a very talented staff. That's all.
I mean, the links are even fun. So on those, you learn so much about what's going on with the park.
Well, I read them every time before the board meeting. I learned stuff that I didn't know.
They are, it's really good.
It's good info.
There's a lot of credit due to both our region managers or park managers and also Devin and Christina. They do a lot of work to keep our media presentations like up to date, and they're always thinking ahead of what might you be interested in. And I'd like to give big kudos to Brody Young, because Megan was out of town and Brody somehow threw it together in like 24 hours so I could get you this.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions for you, Dave. First of all, what negative impacts are we seeing with the uptick in COVID-19? And if there are any, and also Jeremy Shaw mentioned that they were struggling to get product for their visitor center, their gift shops. Is that a problem that's, I know in our industry, we can't get product for construction projects. Can't get doors, windows, tile. I mean, carpet, it's a struggle. There are long lead items and you have to order way in advance. What kind of an effect is that having on our?
It's hitting our gift shops the same way. It's hitting even our motor pool. We've increased staff. We've scavenged every vehicle we can, but you can't buy a new vehicle.
Right.
The computer chips or whatever it is. So we have vehicles that we know we need they keep telling us on our back order, or they'll order them next time they get a chance. The construction, I think Jeff was going to talk some about construction, but yeah, we've had to turn bids back in. There's double our budget. And we had some we bid out several times, and I think there's one project nobody even bid on it. So some of them we're waiting till fall, and hopefully the prices will go down and we can try to bid again. Others we're having to cut back what we wanted. We had a great amount of money for a new park, but now it's like, okay, in real dollars, maybe we have 2/3 of that amount or half, So those are challenges. Yeah, we're finding those kind of challenges. The public kind of challenges, it seems, the parks are really busy. We're not hearing any complaints on people feeling it's too crowded or anything like that. So I think that way, I think things are pretty much back to normal, but the supply and demand kind of thing
That's a challenge. That's a big challenge. COVID-19 is not throwing any challenges at the state parks.
Right now, the state is consistent statewide. There for a while, this county, you could do this, you couldn't do that. For a while, you can only go to the park in your county. So we've gone from that to, I think there's no specific county restrictions, or we've gone back to our normal events. We just have our parks. If your local area has a restriction, then you have to abide by that. But that's kind of how we're dealing with that now.
Had a few employees get quarantined, some of them getting sick.
Yeah.
We've had some that have tested positive.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Dave? All right, Director Jeff, do you mind go next?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. One of the beauties of going last is Dave and Scott did such a great job. I don't have a whole lot to talk about, so I'm good with that. I just want to start with just saying thank you to our staff, and I'll start with our leadership team here, our deputy directors, Dave and Scott, and they're part of our core leadership team, along with our region managers, Lori, Wayne, and Megan, and then our law enforcement chief, Christopher Quick. Dave talked about our 2-day, we called it a retreat, and I think that was a mistake because, yeah, it was fun to get out and see the parks, but we had a big long list of work to do and issues to discuss and decisions to make, and we got a lot of good work done. But I just want to say thank you to our tremendous leadership team, to our staff, because the numbers that Scott talked about and the rescues that Dave talked about and everything that happens with state parks it's a result of the dedication and work ethic of our staff. And we just have a tremendous team with state parks. And I think I've said it before, we all joined this team because this is what we wanted to do. It wasn't about money. Or likely anything else. And I always joke that if it was about money, you made a really bad decision. The state takes care of us. The wages, we always talk, especially when I was younger, the wages, you don't join because of the wages, but the benefits are good. And the pension is certainly nice and something that a lot of other employers just can't meet up to. So anyway, I love our team. I love our staff. They do a tremendous job, and they're passionate about what they do. And you know, the work product, the things that you see in our state parks are evidence of that. So just hats off to everyone for doing such a great job. And I appreciate this board and the passion and energy and enthusiasm that you bring and the support that you give to our state park system. You guys are awesome. And for at least a couple of you that are leaving, we're going to miss you, but we hope to continue to see you playing in our state parks. So whether you pay Brett or you use the app on your phone or whatever it might be. Anyway, I just had a few things that I was going to cover, and I'll do my best to keep us on track with the 7 minutes that we have left. But just wanted to talk briefly about our construction projects. You know, we got $120 million last session, and I think I talked about this at the last board meeting, but just wanted to give you a really quick update on where we are with that work. For most every project, we've at least started the environmental and cultural clearances for most of that work. This is the behind the scenes work that nobody sees, but it takes a lot of time and money to do.
You use for the cultural stuff. Do you do that in-house, or do you contract that, or how do you go about that?
For these projects, it's contracted out. We do have some in-house staff members that can do some of it, but these projects are so large and our timeline to get this done is so short that it's hired out. So that work is either well underway or nearing completion. At the same time we're doing that, we're working on getting the designs worked out, and that starts with the park manager meeting with architects and engineers and our construction staff, kind of bringing a dream of what we can do for this project and then just getting into reality. But we're a long way down that road as well. For our two new state parks, we have Utah Raptor in Grand County, and I'll start with that one. The purchase is, so a half of that park was Sitla, if you remember. The other half was Sovereign Lands. Sovereign Lands is our sister agency here in DNR. So that half of the park, as far as land ownership, is really quite easy because we're all in the same family. The Sitla piece was a little more complicated because we are purchasing that part of it from Sitla. And we were a little nervous that we had to go through, what's it called? Getting the property appraisal. Thank you. We had to go through an appraisal process, and we were a little worried about what that might come in at, but luckily it came in under budget, which means that we'll have a little bit of excess money to spend on the development. That purchase is nearly finalized. Basically, it's just a matter of getting a check issued to Sitla, so we're super excited about that. We're just in the initial phases of figuring out what we're going to do on the ground, but one of the things that's looking promising that we're going to be able to do here is, if you've been to the Utah Raptor site, there's actually 2 different entrances to get into there. And I think I may have mentioned last time we met, the area's been used for a long time. And it's actually one of the last free areas that people can go and recreate and camp. And that's good and bad. It's been completely overrun, and there's a huge problem there. But what I'm trying to get at here is there's 2 entrances to that area right now, and they're within a mile of each other on that busy highway. I think it's Highway 191. And I think it's a 65-mile-an-hour highway, and it's super dangerous. We're going to be able to combine those 2 entrances into one. So we'll have one entrance going into the park, and then it'll split to those 2 roads. So that's going to be a huge improvement. There's been a lot of talk about a second entrance into Arches National Park. That second entrance already exists there. You could drive through there today in a Jeep. I don't know if any of you drive Priuses. I think you may drive a Prius, right, Doug?
Actually, no.
Okay, anyway. Prius isn't going to make it today. Maybe if you have it jacked up for higher clearance, but
Hybrid.
Highlander hybrid.
Okay, I was close. Anyway, there is a road into there, and there's been some discussion, and there was a lot of discussion during the session about a potential second access into Arches. What that might look like is way down the road from what we're currently doing right now. Right now, we're just building the park. We're going to bring in the campgrounds and the parking lots and the trailheads to support a state park development. And then this is just another opportunity, potential opportunity to promote and work with for getting people to Utah Raptor. So one of the discussions about what we might do with that access is promoted as a mountain bike entrance into Arches. One of the problems with developing that entrance is Arches is full. You can create as many entrances as you want into Arches National Park, but the fact is all our campgrounds and parking lots are full. So kind of getting the cart before the horse before anyone tries to build a highway into Arches National Park. But what I think that it may be able to be, at least initially, is a non-motorized entrance, or at least promoting that way. The other little side project that we're looking into is there's a really neat paved mountain bike hiking trail that goes into Moab City that almost gets to Utah Raptor. And it would be really cool to connect those two. So in addition to all this, the history side of Utah Raptor State Park, we have volunteer groups that are wanting to donate towards the interpretation of the dinosaur quarry. Utah Friends of Paleontology out of Moab is looking at giving a substantial donation to state parks for some of that interpretive efforts. Those interpretive efforts we've got similar groups wanting to donate time and resources to interpret the Japanese internment camp that was there and the Civilian Conservation Corps site. So Utah Raptor is an amazing place with the history, with the recreation. It's going to be an awesome park. And we actually, Brian, my boss, gave me a goal of moving dirt at every one of these projects before the end of the year. And if you're familiar with some of the red tape that we have with government and starting projects, that's a really tall order, but I'm confident that dirt will be moved to Utah Raptor before the end of the year, even if that's just the drilling rig to drill the well. But we are going to make something happen on the ground, and a lot of work to come after that. The other new state park is Lost Creek in Morgan County. And that's also an exciting project. It's going to accomplish a lot of the same things that we're accomplishing at Utah Raptor with bringing in facilities to a site has been overrun for a long time. That one's kind of along the same lines as Utah Raptor. We've got a lot of the environmental and cultural work done. We've got kind of had a head start for Lost Creek because we had plans developed probably 25, 30 years ago when there was talk about developing that state park. And we're going to use a lot of that same information. So that one's moving along as well. The other 18 major projects that we have, multi-million-dollar projects for building new campgrounds and base areas and improving beaches and trailheads and all that stuff, are kind of in a similar situation. Most of the environmental cultural work is either well along the way or nearly completed. The designs are underway, and we have the same goal with those projects that we're going to get. Hopefully start moving dirt before the end of the year, and I think we're going to be able to make that happen on most of them. Like Dave mentioned to your question about COVID, we're facing all the same challenges that anybody else is with building. It's hard to find people to bid on the projects. The supplies are extremely expensive. The cost estimates are coming in probably 50 to 60% above what we've paid in the past. So the downside of that is we may not be able to develop a lot of these improvements to the level that we've done. So the challenge that I've given to our construction managers is let's put as many campsites as we can and get it all set up so that when we do have more funding and prices come back down to reality, we can put in some of the niceties like shade shelters and some of those things. And the reality is people want to get out and camp and experience in our park. And even if it's just a campsite to pull into with hookups and all the basics, that's going to go a long way in addressing the tremendous demand. Just to give you an example of some of those crazy prices, if I remember my numbers right, Chase, our construction manager, was telling me that we used to pay $300 per fire pit, which I think is crazy expensive. We had a bid come in on one of our projects for $1,800 for a fire pit. just because prices are so crazy. And, you know, again, any of you that have tried to buy something at Home Depot over the last year, you can see that it's just out of this world crazy. So we're going to do the best that we can with the resources and the supplies that we have. That's my update on the construction. Legislatively, I think there's going to continue to be a lot of interest in investing money in outdoor recreation. I know of at least a couple of new state park ideas that are floating out there. I can't really share those with you, but I think that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be a lot more ideas of potential new state parks or new state monuments. There's also a handful of major investment ideas in our state parks that various legislators have. And some of this goes back to the COVID money. I don't know what it is, but apparently there's a pretty good sized chunk of money that is available to invest in infrastructure. And there continues to be a lot of interest in investing in that in outdoor recreation because they see and understand the value that outdoor recreation brings to our residents, to our visitors, to the tourism economy. And I think, you know, the 120 million was unprecedented for Utah and for Utah state parks. I think there's going to be more of that to come this session, and that's a good thing. And we're going to be ready with a list when they come to us. So I think legislatively, there's going to be more of that. We're working on a number of things. One that I mentioned last time was revising or streamlining the State Monuments Act. The State Monuments Act was created a couple sessions ago, and there's been a lot of interest in creating new state monument sites. Joan Hammer's got one in her neck of the woods that they're working on, but there's some tweaks that need to be made to that State Monuments Act to make it work a little better. And now that we're using it a lot, we found some of those bugs. So we'll be working with Representative Ellison to try to get some of those changes made. What else? So Claudia's favorite subject, House Bill 346. So work continues on that. I'll be honest, there hasn't been a whole lot of work done on it yet. But this was the bill ran by Representative Snyder and also sponsored by Senator Sandel last session that effectively splits our Division of Parks and Recreation into the Division of State Parks and the Division of Recreation. And I think we're getting really close to Brian Steve making an announcement on a new director. And that's really where a lot of the work is going to start. We have a year to make this happen. Well, not quite a year now, but we have until June 30th. And we're going to make it happen. Nothing's really changed with kind of the higher level stuff that we're looking at with that. Law enforcement will stay with state parks. That's where the greater need is. And so law enforcement will be supervised by state parks, forest state parks, and contracted with the Division of Recreation. Our grant programs, including Land and Water Conservation Fund, our off-highway vehicle grants, and some of the boating grant money will go to that Division of Recreation that will oversee those needs, off-highway vehicle and boating needs statewide for our state parks, but also outside of our state parks. Some of the obvious staffing that's directly tied to those programs will move to the Division of Recreation. So that's our off-highway vehicle staff, Chris Haller, Rachel Toker, and Mike Thomas. And then our boating staff, Ty Hunter and Becky, I can't remember her last name, but Steinfels. Okay. Our shop staff, we have six full-time employees with our shop staff. There are mechanics that keep all of our equipment going in our state parks and so much more, as well as our program. But the majority of what they do is program related, so it makes sense that they go to the Division of Recreation. All the additional changes are going to roll out with time, but even though I wouldn't say that it's a fun transition, I think in the end it's going to do a lot of good in getting resources where they need to get. And one of the beauties of this situation is we're all going to operate under DNR and within the same footprint. And we'll be in a situation where we can coordinate regularly, and that's going to be important in order to make this happen. One thing that I do know as we go through this transition is we have a responsibility to meet the requirements, the goals that were set for those programs and our state parks. And I don't want to see anything fall between the cracks. So we're operating under the current scenario, the Division of State Parks and Recreation, until all these changes are made, but we're going to make it all happen. Anyway, that's all I had to report, unless any of you have questions or comments.
State park is a place, I understand that, but what happens at a state park? It's camping, it's fishing, it's OHV, it's boating.
Yep.
It's all of these recreational activities, and my worry is, what does that mean for state parks? If recreation is this, so what's a state park? Is it just a placeholder on a map? No, it's not. And state parks have taken on a lot of concessions to do a lot of the other stuff, paddleboarding, kayaking, all of these other recreation activities to make it a special place to go. And you go to a state park to recreate.
Yeah.
That's what is frustrating to me. And I wasn't going to say anything, but now I have a lot to
Claudia, if you look at it from a different perspective.
I can't get my head around it. I am so sorry.
Let's see if we can paint a picture though, because you're going to have all of those same experiences and activities at our state parks. But with the bifurcation, the splitting of the two divisions, you're going to be able to see more. They're going to go after grant money to build trails, to do things that we in state parks can't do.
Why did it take a whole other division to do that, to go after grants?
They'll be able to focus on building those trails where there isn't a fee in places that we just don't operate. So like Jeff said, I think there are a lot of good things that will come from this.
The fact is you can't split that part of what we do with our state parks because it's so heavily intertwined. You think about, I mean, pretty much every state park you could use as an example, but I like to use Sand Hollow because it's so heavily tied to boating and off-highway vehicles. Those opportunities are going to continue to exist and be offered at Sand Hollow State Park. It's the only change, and to me, the public's not going to see any change on their side because all those activities are still going to happen. We're going to offer those opportunities, but it's just going to require more coordination between the two agencies. And I really think, I think I said this last board meeting, but one of the frustrations that we've had being a self-funded agency is sometimes there are needs with recreation that are going to cost money that don't have a direct benefit. It's not like you can charge a fee to make it happen. And I think because of that, I'm not bad-mouthing that direction because like Doug had said, it was scary when that happened to our agency as we transformed into a self-funded agency, but it was really the best thing that could have happened to us. On the flip side, Division of Recreation is not tied to that mandate, and they will be getting grant money and general fund money to support recreation. So I see this bringing in more resources that we haven't been able to bring into our programs, the program stuff that we do in our state parks, because of that self-funded mandate. So yeah, it's going to take work, and it's going to be challenging to figure out all the details of how this is going to work. But in the end, I think it's going to bring in more resources that we would have never seen before.
So so what you're saying then, Jeff, is that it will improve the experience, it will increase the experience, it'll maybe magnify what you already have to be a better experience for visitors.
That's the way I see it. You know, I'll give you an example. We had a county that came to us last year that wanted to do a rail trail system in their county, similar to what we have on the Wasatch Back. Great opportunity for the public. Awesome, ability to attract more people for tourism. But we were in a position where we had to say, we can't do that. Because how do you can't charge fees for trails like that. There's really no way to do it. Division of Recreation is going to be able to take on challenges like that and provide a benefit. And again, they're not tied to self-funded through revenue. So for reasons like that, I think it's going to be a better situation. And I think there's going to be a lot more willingness for the legislature to funnel general fund money to that agency for those types of projects, whether they're in state parks or out of state parks. I know I'm not gonna sell it to you today, Claudia, but that's how I see it.
Jeff, I need to commend you for being such a loyal person. But I really agree with Claudia. This is a new bureaucracy in search of a problem. It's a solution that doesn't need, that is solving something that is not a real problem.
Well, as board members, we don't have the power to veto this action.
No, we
So-
don't.
One thing that I will
We put
say-
on our houses, and I am.
I have to be careful in how I say this, but there are some things that are being worked on behind the scenes that once they're rolled out, it's gonna make a lot more sense than it does right now. I can't tell you what those details are because they're still being worked on, but I'm pretty certain that once it's all rolled out, it's gonna make a heck of a lot more sense. And I could see that not knowing that information, it would be kind of frustrating to, wait a minute, what's going on here? Anyway, that's all I can say. So stay tuned. There's more to come.
Well, our trust and our hope is, I mean, State Parks has been so calculated and so focused and so careful with their decisions. So our hope and our trust is that this decision has been well thought out and that those benefits will happen, that will increase the experience for all. So we just have to sit back and
A little faith and
let things happen. Yeah.
I just don't, I guess I've always had the opinion, I may never lose it. And that is, can anything good come from the legislature? You know, and when it's a new idea from
Careful,
them.
you're on record here.
Okay, that's fine. Lyle Hilliard's my neighbor and he knows I feel that way. Okay.
Any other questions for Jeff?
I'm putting a lot of faith in what you're telling me, but I hope that someday I don't have to say, I told you so.
All right, we're a few minutes behind our schedule. I'd say if anybody needs to step out and use facilities, let's just keep going boldly forward if that's okay. And with that, we've got some administrative rule changes, some things on animals, camping permits, some new designations. I guess let's go to Dave first on that. Is that where we're at?
Okay. All right, hopefully this won't take too long. I don't know if you had a chance to read through the rule changes or not. If you could throw up the dog rule one. And then if you go into the track changes and hit show markup or whatever, I guess you got it. It's under review. And then track, oh no, right here, just show.
You go into animals, we also have definitions.
I have definitions too.
Click that top one.
Was this the definitions one then?
No, this would be the dogs, I'm sorry. I want to start with the dogs. The definition one kind of ties into the permits. So I kind of wanted to cover those together. I call it the dog rule, but basically where this started, and it was probably even when I was back at the region, you know, there's a couple parks that had rules, you know, prohibiting dogs in certain areas. It just didn't make sense. And tried to drill down. Deer Creek was one of them. I always heard over the years that it was the water district didn't want you know, dogs, and because it's a watershed. But you know, and you get going on other things, and a couple of years pass, and you don't get an answer. You keep digging and digging, and finally, when I got here, and Jeff's a dog lover, and we all want, you know, people are bringing their animals to the parks. I mean, it's the new kids, I guess. You know, everybody's got dogs that they're bringing, so we wanted to be more friendly to dogs, and we were fairly friendly. There was an article that came out a couple months ago or 6 months ago in a camping magazine, and it just showed Utah to be pretty friendly to dogs compared with other states in the state park system. But we just wanted to be almost totally friendly, and I think we basically got there. The changes here, the only restrictions we would have on dogs, specific restriction would be the mountain bike trail at Dead Horse Point, the Intrepid Trail at Dead Horse Point, and just for safety, trying to take that professional trail with a dog on a leash, which is a rule in the park, that just felt that was inappropriate. So, just starting at the, if you could scroll up to the tippy top, I kind of talk through the current situation but what we recommend is, and some of it's cleanup language, but hats off to the staff. I sent these out to the regions. They brought their input back, and I never thought about taking the rule out that said you couldn't have a dog on a beach. And the parks were coming back saying, hey, we can't keep up with that. We don't think it's a big deal. If there's no other state law or thing that affects that, let's just make them open to dogs. So anyway, we basically the only place the dogs are prohibited now would be in a park or concession operated food service and dining area. And you can scroll down some more. The next red spot, I guess. And then the second part that affected animals or dogs in parks was under our special closures and restrictions. And we found that some parks were using the emergency closures and restrictions, and they were using it on a permanent basis. So put some better language in there so that the park can still do an emergency closure or restriction, not just for animals, for anything, with the approval of the region manager and during a temporary emergency situation. So somebody can't say, well, we don't want dogs on the beach forever. You know, if there's a reason, let's talk to the region managers, and if they agree, they can talk to us leadership, and we can make a decision if we want to do that. And if they want to do something limited on a permanent basis, then that's what the board's for. If we need a rule for it, then let's do that. So that's just not for animals. That's for anything. And then this is just striking the rules at Deer Creek State Park and Jordanelle State Park for dogs. I've talked to the Bureau of Reclamation, the landowner, our partner there, and they're totally fine with that. Their only I guess advice to us was make sure you're enforcing the dog rules that you do have. You can be on a leash and clean up fecal matter. So I'm going to reiterate to our parks, they need to make sure that they're doing that. So yes,
I just see one kind of a typo, and that's that you need to change the number in front of Snow Canyon Park to
I
3.
need to go
rather
back on the other one as well. When you delete something, you haven't renumbered the section below.
and I didn't do that specifically. I leave that up to administrative rules.
Okay.
And then they'll tell us if we need to, because I've seen them where they just put deleted. You know, they'll put the word deleted or whatever. I don't think the word term, you probably know the term. It's not deleted. It's not abolished. I don't know what the omitted maybe.
It's not omitted.
But there's a term that they use. And then on a lot of our, like in our law enforcement side of things, they have specific codes that they cite to.
Okay.
And if you move all the numbers, then they got to move all their numbers. So hopefully we can keep it like this, with just whatever that term is.
Yeah.
Repealed, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Any questions on the dog rule?
All right, so Dave Harris has presented changes to Rule 651-603, which is animals, and also 651-633, special closures or restrictions. I'd entertain a motion to make those changes.
I so move.
For a second.
I'll second that.
So a motion from Doug and a second from Brent. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we got a thumbs up. We're doing a visual and a verbal with the guys on the remote there. Okay, motion passed. Dave, you want to go to your next one, please?
Okay, let's go to the camping rule. For some reason I didn't get a printout of it, so I will look up here at the screen. With our camping rule, it was basically a different color again. Every track changes can be a real interesting thing. Anyway, the current situation is we just need to update our camping rules. we're doing a lot more in our parks than just offering campsites. There's lodging and other accommodations. So, we put some additional language in there for that. I guess I'll just go through it on here since I don't have it there. This here on the permits, anything that required a permit got moved to the permit rule. So there's a list of things in the permit rule, which I'll be talking about in a minute. This was just moved into the other rule that says you need a permit to camp in an unauthorized area or undeveloped area. So this didn't go away, it just went to another location. This is just the cleanup, and also with our lodging and other accommodations, it's not one size fits all, 2 vehicles and 8 persons. Some of our yurts hold 12 people, or some of the tenter things might only be rated for 4 people. So we changed this to the posted number. And I remember last time or a couple meetings ago, we defined what posted means. And that can be on a camp receipt, it can be on the internet, on our website, it could be on the reservation system website. It could be anyway. So that's where we moved on that. Oh, it's at the top now.
Sorry, I moved now.
This rule right here is covered in another rule. My notes on the side went away, but there's another rule that says you have to pay for facilities or services before you use them. So this is kind of a duplicate rule that we don't need. And then just clean up language, overnight stays rather than camping. I don't think there's really any substantive changes in that. And then this one here, we've had a lot of people coming into our parks, especially during the drought. They come in and they want to fill up their water tank. They have a cabin, close to the park. They want to fill up a 250, 500 gallon water tank. They're coming in to take showers. People that aren't camping will try to run a 10,000 foot cable to a campsite with a power outlet. So people that live in the area will bring their garbage into our parks. Like, just tried to cover, and they actually are overflowing some of our dump stations. The people that aren't camped in our park, they have an annual pass. They come in and they want to use the dump station. I guess normally maybe that's not an issue at some parks, but some parks, you're on a drain field, and you just can't handle that kind of use. So anyway, that's just some defining language there. It's just kind of cleanup language on these. And this is just adding other things you should do before you leave your lodging other than campsite. And then this last one down here was, we don't know how long that had been there, but the current manager and region manager didn't feel that there needed to be an exception to Coral Pink on their quiet hours. So we struck that. So now all the parks are the same from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. is quiet hours. And that's the gist of that rule, unless you have any questions.
I got a question. So that's saying that unless you're camping in the park, you cannot use the water. Like a day use person could not use the water or the dump stations
associated with camping. Like if you're in a day use area and there's a water spigot, yeah, you're welcome to use that.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is currently at Palisade, people will come in and pay a day use fee to do that, to fill up and especially dump. So is this prohibiting that?
If the park manager wants to do so, yes.
Okay, it's just if the park manager wants to. He can still allow that for a day use fee.
They could allow it.
Okay.
But some of the parks even have a fee for that. So if you want to come in and dump your waste, they charge, like at Green River, I think they do that. They have a specific fee just for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That last part of it says with permission or as posted, so it gives that flexibility.
All right.
That can even be the seasonal to gate. If the park manager says, hey, if people are coming in to dump, we can let them do that now. Then that's an authority at the park, even if it's a seasonal employee.
Any other questions for Dave on this? All right, so Dave has presented changes to Rule R651-606 camping, and I'd accept a motion to implement those changes.
I move approval of rule changes to R651-606 camping.
All right, we've got a motion from Claudia. Do we have a second? We have a second from Bob. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, Dave, next one, please.
Okay, we'll tackle the definitions before the big one. And the definitions, the changes in here, for the most part, deal with the permitting rule that I'm going to be talking about in a minute here. But there's been a need it's been a long time since our permitting rules were looked at. We had, well, I guess I'll start with, I'll lump them all together. We'll start with the definitions, but I'll talk about the permitting rules. We had rules that dealt with commercial use in the parks, and we had rules that dealt with special uses in the park, and that some of those were commercial, some weren't. So we basically took those two rules and put them together, along with a bunch of other things that were listed in random rules that require permits. So just basically it's a consolidation. It doesn't really change the intent much of what happened. It just consolidates, makes things easier to find. You don't have to look for two different rules and no, oh, this isn't the commercial rule. No, this isn't the special uses rule. And to do that, there was some definition changes that needed to take place. So through that process, there was definitions for permit, special use permit, permission. So I just brought all those together. It really didn't change the intent of any of the definitions. You can see over here where the old rule came from. It just moved from there to here. And by the way, Mike Long, our contracts specialist, soon to be not contract specialist, as Scott mentioned, and Shane Stroud, our new attorney, picked through these many times to make sure everything was done the correct way. So basically, this one struck, but it just moved up to here. If you just scroll down to the next, I think there's more red. It's the same with here, that's just moved up. And this right here was a non-substantive change that has been there for years, that for some reason when they wrote the rule, they put definitions under definitions, but it should be motorized transportation device. So that's new language. They come out right color though. This was inserted by the attorney for clarification. And then this was moved from another rule that had that defined special uses, and moved a couple other rules in here defining the sale, posting, or distribution of printed material and soliciting of any type. Put that underneath the special use.
Looks like all those movements, those changes in location are still under the umbrella of definitions in 601, right?
Yes, we're still talking, yeah, this is just a definition rule. When we throw up the next one, you'll see miles of red ink. So really no intent changes, just clarification, consolidating in this definitions rule.
And you forgot the most important omission is removing the word recreation from state parks and recreation in both of this one and the last one. It's been removed.
They're there.
It's been removed.
She noted it's been removed.
Recreation has been.
Yes. Yep.
Just saying.
Sorry. Yes. I don't know what administrative rules will do with that, but yes, that's something that's going to need to take place in all of our rules. Or there's some rules that would probably just go right straight to recreation. So, but these are definitely in our purview.
Any other questions for Dave? All right, I'd accept a motion to make these changes to R 651-601 definitions and definitions as used in these rules.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
A motion from Kevin.
I'll second it.
Second from Doug. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 2 thumbs up online. Any opposed?
Just gonna take a second.
All right, motion carries.
It's just, it's on the network, so it's like,
All right. Do you have more for us, Dave?
Yes, the biggest one.
We're going strong. Yeah, or we're just getting warmed up here. Okay.
And if you want to, I don't know if you can flip back and forth between the permits, the final permits rule,
Yes, I can do that.
and the show markup version of it. Okay, then we'll start. Just to give you an idea, if you can just, and you probably saw it in your packet, but it's 8 pages. If you go to the, oh, I should see.
Sorry.
If you go to, just kind of scroll down through it, it's 8 pages of basically what came up blue and green here, but of red ink. And it's the changes and the consolidation of the 2 main rules into 1 rule. And hopefully you've had a chance to look at that, and I go through it in detail if you'd like, but if you want to flip over to the flow chart, I'd just like to show you, and maybe this will satisfy what you want to see. Keep myself straight and to hopefully explain to you, I set up a flow chart on this. The green here is the combined rules, and there's a 651 in front of that, obviously, but 635 and 608. The 635 was the commercial use. The 608 was events and special uses. So basically, it's bringing this and this together here, and then throwing in these. But so basically, this would be changed to commercial privilege and special uses, and that's those are defined here. And we already looked at that, what those special uses were in the definitions rule. And then the second part of that is prohibited activities without a permit. And these are the ones that are in red that were brought in from other rules. You can see the rule number here that would move into prohibited activities. So the public or our folks, if you know, now you look through pages of stuff to find out if you can collect firewood or not. Well, no, you can, but you got to have a permit for it. So you have to have a permit for metal detecting, fireworks, and I just made these short, but it's what is it? Not ammunition, dynamite. What's the term for dynamite? So it's more than just fireworks. Public address systems, camping on developed area, unattended animals, technical rock climbing, printed material. Well, those 2 went over here into definitions, but then this says you have to have a permit for it, so it just ties back that you got to have a permit for it.
As far as metal detecting, is that a big thing? I guess I see people doing it in parks and beaches and different places. Is that?
I don't know how huge it is, but it's common. People, yeah, but we have artifacts in our parks, and so you can get a permit to do it. We just want to know who's doing it, and a lot of times I think the parks make them show them what they found. Make sure it's not something that, you don't want to leave the park.
Protected resources.
Now there's I think it's actually, the language expands more, but there's they call it a magnet fishing now. I don't know if you've ever seen that on YouTube. You get really powerful magnets and throw it off a bridge or off a dock and drag it around and find, people find guns that people threw off the bridge because they did a murder, or you find somebody's lawn chair that blew over.
Yeah, now you just wait till the end of August, so you can just walk around in the Craig County and find it.
Yeah. So that's turned into a big deal too. So that's included in that.
Claudia, did you have a
I
question?
did have a question because I didn't understand what privileged meant. So I read it very carefully, but privilege came up and I'm going, what's a privilege? What's privilege? I know I'm commercial, I know all the other ones permitted, but.
We had a big discussion with the lawyer on that as well. And because it was in our old rule, he felt we needed to keep it in this rule.
What is it?
I know, I said, should we define it? He goes, no, I think you should just leave it like it is.
Let's just save us about $8,300 by leaving it like it is. In the lawyer template.
It probably is there to cover anything that's not specifically.
At least if it was outside counsel.
So I guess that it's referring to like a privilege, not a right. It's something that has to be permitted, and you're not guaranteed to have that commercial activity.
I have full confidence in our attorney. That's all I can say. I can't explain it either, but
yes, we did have that discussion. It was in the old rule. He felt it should stay in this rule. Then you can scroll down a little more. And just requirements to attain permit, you know, that just, there was already some here, but we brought these in to equal that. Signature requirements were brought in. And some of that, it cleaned up language that was bad. I remember when I was at the region manager was supposed to sign every special use permit that was developed at the park level. Well, that's maybe 20 years ago that would have been possible, but now it would be literally, that would be all that the region manager would do. It's just approved because we have hundreds and hundreds of them. So that just reduced the requirement that the park manager can sign special use permits. And then it brought in some language from on revocation concerning permit violations. But they said it really didn't change a lot of intent. It just consolidated, cleaned up some processes that wasn't happening. The region managers weren't signing every SUP, so why have a rule that requires them to do it?
Well, just another stupid question, but this all covers, I guess, private entities that want to do something on park property. But if a park manager wants to have an activity that falls into one of those permitted uses, what's their process, or does it just given that they can do it?
Right.
They have, is that the privilege?
That's a privilege.
Got it.
Yes, I mean, obviously they're going to follow, you know, all the protocols.
They have to do the same. They have to get a permit to do.
And there's a guideline, a division guideline that goes more in depth from the rules. So and Mike Long is working on that as well. It almost has that, but that digs down more into the weeds sometimes. And I'm not, it's been a long time since I looked at that, but I'm sure it gives the division direction on how to do those. But we try to follow everything we make. If we're going to do an event, we're going to do the same processes. That if we require masks at an event that the public's going to host, we're going to do the same for us. You know, we're not going to do things different.
And then at the same time, if we were doing a promotional video or we were taking a drone video or pictures, we wouldn't commit ourselves to do that. We would just go ahead and do that under the guidelines that we currently.
Well, if you wanted to send off fireworks for some activity, so do you have to go through this process to permit where you're the park versus?
Well, a lot of the purpose of the permit is to make sure that the local laws and insurance coverage is we have our own insurance.
Unless you're privileged.
Right.
It's gonna go right back to that.
It's not the person that's privileged, it's the event. Privileged activity or event.
I got it.
So
all the same requirements are met because we're bound by those same requirements. So you hold an event, and if it's a big event, you got to get a mass gathering permit through the county. Maybe you have to have medical coverage there. We're self-insured, so all the permitting process does is just make sure that all happens. But no, we don't fill out a permit for ourselves because we're already doing all that stuff. Is that a better way?
Yeah, got it.
I think on the insurance side of things, if somebody's coming and doing the Ironman at Sand Hollow, you know, we make sure that company that's hosting it has enough insurance to cover that event. If we're hosting that event, we call our risk management agent and say, we want to do this, you know, and if they don't have a heart attack, you know, so you can't do it, we do it. So, but if they told us, no, you can't, you know, we're not going to cover that event in your park, then we're not going to do it either.
I was just curious because this all covers private to do an activity on park. I just wondered if there was also something that covered in park, same activities. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to make these changes to R 651-635, commercial use of division managed park areas.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Kevin, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Claudia seconds. Any further discussion?
I just have one follow-up question. And I don't know, maybe Amber knows the exact, do we need their approval on every one of
the rules?
No, because you presented the changes and we'll post them publicly with the notes, your.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
You recognize it as a privilege to be able to vote on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, let's go to our director, Jeff.
Before I jump into mine, I just want to thank Dave and our staff for getting all these changes made. It's not a fun process to go through, but a lot of these rules have been rules for 20, 30 years and they're way outdated. And it's something that needs to be done, but nobody's really taken the bull by the horns to make sure that it did get done. And just want to say thank you for doing it. So, and thanks for making it happen today. Okay, so it looks like I have 2 minutes. My rule is really quite easy, and I'm glad I get to present this one because it doesn't have any red. It's all brand new. I'm assuming that you've all read through this designations rule, and Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, if you'd like, I can explain some of the details, but if you need that. But I'll just explain kind of why we're bringing this to your attention. As I mentioned in my report, and we've talked throughout the meeting, there is a lot of interest in creating new state parks. Every session we get multiple requests, and I was invited to give a presentation to an interim committee a few months ago to talk about the processes for creating new state monuments and creating new state parks. And I think the intent of the meeting was to potentially create a process for designating state parks like there is with state monuments. Well, the fact is we already have a process for doing that, and we have things that we go through to determine whether or not proposals are appropriate for state parks and whether or not they can pay for themselves, and that involves stakeholder input and all that. But we really don't have anything official in writing. We do this, and there's statute that gives us direction, and there's internal guidelines, but there's not really a go-to place where we have a page or two that kind of goes through the process. So all this state park designation rule does for us is that it creates that process, so that we have in 651-104-4, what are the appropriate attributes for a state park? And then the following one, what is the process that you go through to do that? And I guess the simplest way to do this is it was our thought that rather than have the legislature create a process for us, and nothing against our great legislators, they do an awesome job, but they don't work for state parks. They don't deal with this on a regular basis. They don't know all the intricacies of what creates a state park. It was our feeling that it would be better to create our own rule, because we already have our process and formalize it in this rule. And that's really the gist of what we're trying to do here with this rule. So unless you'd like me to go into more details about what it says, that's what I'm proposing for your consideration today.
I hate to bring this up, but under process, I wondered if you should have some statement like coordination with Division of Recreation, which isn't in here. You're doing stakeholders, you're doing cities and counties, but I didn't see that specific language, and since you've been so kind to explain to me about the role of the Division of Recreation, should they not be consulted, or something in here as far as a state park, since it has most state parks, in fact, all state parks deal with recreation. Should there not be some statement to that, of consultation or coordination? That was the only thing I wanted.
There could be. It wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list of every single entity that might be considered. We certainly could add that if you want to add that. Like, for example, in the coordination, it talks about coordinating with the Division of History for any site that might have historical significance. So we could certainly add that if you feel it's necessary. I guess from my perspective, it was just to assume that we would already do that like we would with a lot of other sister agencies, but I guess that's really up to the board unless, Scott, you have another idea.
I'm just kind of curious as to where you're developing or where the idea is coming from. Is there a problem that you see, or what are we trying to
Just
solve?
that you talked about coordination already, and he did bring up the division of history. So I'm going, oh, there is one other extremely important division that has just been created that I think you would want to specifically have in here saying consultation with or coordination with the Division of Recreation, even though you're under the same umbrella as such. But since it's such a big deal, I just thought maybe that language may ought to be in there.
And I think part of maybe the misunderstanding would be that this idea of the new Division of Recreation is somewhat vague. When we talked about state history in the rule, it's because we have museums and historical sites where we do often partner with them now. The Division of Recreation, I think, is very, I don't know that we'll have a lot of crossover with them because what they do is very different than what we do. There could be some.
Voting, OHB, that's not different. That's gonna, I'm just saying, seems to me like what they took and are taking to move to this, there needs to be. I'm okay if the rest of the board is okay. I just thought it was an obvious omission that there's not some kind of coordination with another extremely visible division that impacts the creation of a state park. So if it's not important, and I just thought I'd bring it up, just ask the question, just make the note. So
No, I think that's something that we discussed and talked about, but you are right. And there will be coordination because of those activities that we do have in our parks.
but if you're making this an actual rule that the legislature now relies on, maybe that, I just thought that language might need to be in there, so whatever.
I definitely like that you have the cities and the counties in there. That's
Absolutely.
I was wondering, just looking at under the process, number 2A, it says consult with any stakeholders tasked with the management of the areas concerned. I wonder if you could just add a word in there about areas and opportunities concerned, that could cover an agency like that.
I think that statement in itself, actually, like Bob just said,
I mean, it could.
it encompasses that.
That encompasses all of it.
I'm good either way with it, whatever the board feels is.
What I like about this is that you've taken a stab at putting something together that establishes a framework for what is to happen. It's evergreen. It's going to continue to change.
Yep.
Likely, but this is a really great first step. I think I would use the word qualify in there somewhere, like at R 651-104, appropriate attributes that qualify to be a state park. Isn't that kind of what we're looking at? What qualifies a site to be a state park?
Now, where are you looking? Like
Appropriate attributes for.
Appropriate attributes for a state park.
104-4.
Okay.
Seems like the word qualify ought to be in there somewhere because these are attributes that you're looking at that may or may not qualify a site to be a state park.
So you want to change the should to like a must, or proposed state parks must provide or possess to, establish a harder threshold is what you're thinking?
Yeah, and even in the title, appropriate attributes that qualify to be a state park.
Defining a state park.
That defines a state park.
So does
Maybe.
all of those things have to be found, or just some of them? For example, I read the first one, it says diverse multi-use outdoor recreation experience, but that, I know the state parks has some museums and stuff, which is a little different animal. That's not necessarily outdoor recreation. So does that, do we like that? Do we don't like it?
I think these are like and/ors.
And/or.
There's a list.
Yeah, they
Well, again, this is going to come before a committee, and if it has all the attributes or enough attributes to qualify it to be a state park, then that will, this just brings it all together so that it can be evaluated to determine if it does qualify, right? A proposal I would say would be build a proposal format so you can hand it to somebody and say, and it ought to be an electronic form, given that your location has the attributes, this is the information that we need from you in this format, to be submitted to the committee.
You know, what we've done here is kind of similar to what we already have with the State Monuments Act.
Right.
And then we have an application process that we've created for the state monuments that gets into more details.
Right.
To gather that information and
Yeah.
ensure everything.
And that's what I'm suggesting
comes
for this.
together. And that's exactly what we would do with this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I like it.
Point of personal privilege. The heading, this is confusing to me. It says natural resources, parks and recreation. Then it only refers to parks, doesn't talk about recreation as a division elsewhere.
Yeah. So that should, I'm not sure how the others are worded, but probably should say Natural Resources Division of State Parks. How did we do yours?
Point
So we
that.
can change that. Old habits are hard to change.
What they call the governor's office of economic development now is,
What did you?
now it's off.
Consistent with the others.
So the other ones that Dave just did are Natural Resources, State Parks. So just to be consistent, we could change it to that.
You got one earlier on the,
Is that how you did all of them?
yeah, at R 651.
Commercial use.
Yeah, commercial uses has the same
Parks and
rule,
recreation.
rule heading.
Yep, good catch. That makes sense.
Make sure that those are all consistent.
So Claudia, are you comfortable with
I'm
what was?
comfortable with whatever the board wants to do. I
We
was
want you to
just
be comfortable.
raising that since we've had.
I think that A does cover that. And you could say including, for example, recreation and any other, management groups, their stakeholders. You could put a list there, including the following.
I think one of the problems with the list is
It defines it
it's an
too
assumption
much.
that,
Yeah.
What if you said tasked with the management of the areas and activities concerned?
That would be a
To me-
big step towards the recreation
To me,
side.
then it could be interpreted that way.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Well, appropriate attributes is your outdoor recreation areas and unmet services in demand by the public. I mean, you've got recreation all through here. And that, but you don't specifically call out somebody that's charged with statewide recreation, so.
But that would
That's
be,
okay, I'm okay with that.
But with activities,
Activities would include that.
and if boating and or OHV are one of the primary activities, then
that'd
to
be,
me, that directs us to go to Division of Rec.
I sense there is a hesitation to add that, so I'm fine.
I think this is a simple addition we can approve.
Oh, I think so too.
So
It
what's-
casts a big enough umbrella that I think it does cover everything.
So what's been proposed would be to modify section 104-5 state park designation process in number 2A to change it from consult with any stakeholders tasked with management of the areas concerned. And we're going to insert that to say tasked with management of the areas
And activities concerned.
So there's an explicit requirement if there's OHV, if there's boating activities that are taking place, that would be a consultation process. Does that work for everybody?
and then have you identified the qualified or Bob, where you wanted to make that?
You want something a little bit more firm there.
Yeah.
And then I think we either need to say all of those are required or just some of them, just so there's not a.
So I think we could do these two at once, maybe. So this goes to 104-4 appropriate attributes for state park, proposed state parks, and then maybe change this to from should to must contain some or all of the following.
Some or all, I guess, yeah.
So you don't have to have all of these, but this is a list that we're looking for. I mean, if it's a museum, it doesn't.
Sure, it's not gonna have outdoor recreation.
If it's a recreation, it doesn't. And that would make it a little bit more firm for what Bob's looking for.
Proposed state parks
Must
Must
include
must
Must
include,
provide.
must include.
Well, you can use that same wording, must provide or possess.
Yeah.
Must provide or possess, yeah.
Some or all.
Some or all of the following.
Yeah.
And again, this is an evergreen document. You're gonna continue to modify this and change this.
With that in mind, I'm wondering if on number 3, C, under that, if you need to have that and dangling right there. Because that would mean that all those things have to be included.
Yeah.
Could you replace it with or?
I think it should be probably an or.
Why not just leave it with a semicolon?
It can be an or. I think or is consistent with the state monuments and the like other rule formats. So it can be one or all.
Yeah.
Did you ever contemplating drafting a guideline? A little bit.
Not a guideline, but just an application process like we have with state monuments.
And that's where you could clarify that in that document that consultation would occur with these divisions.
Yeah.
Because we also, if we call out one division of DNR, we also have to call out wildlife when there's gonna be hunting, we have to, call out Sitla, we're gonna be, buying Sitla land. Like, so creating a non-exhaustive list would create problems for us later if we identify one division versus all of them.
That's why I like that more generic wording that we have in here.
And then your checklist can be exhaustive.
Yep.
Prevents us from having to do this every 6 months.
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
So forget my privilege.
You got the word in there, Doug.
That's all I wanted.
So any more thoughts? So we've scratched and recreation off the title, so natural resources, parks. Is that right? Is that okay for? And then in 104-4, we're saying proposed state parks must possess or provide some or all of the following. And then down there in C, we're changing the and to an or. And then at the bottom of the page in 104-5, we said this with management of the areas and activities. Concerned. Any other thoughts or recommendations? If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to accept our 651-104 state park designations as we've discussed.
I'll make that motion.
A motion from Kevin. Second from Brent. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, board. All right, thank you. So I think we've made all of our changes to the administration rules have been on our agenda. Next, Rachel, we have some OHV fiscal incentive grants to look at. This was a highlight for us and you both, right?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for having me here today, and it's kind of nice to actually sit in and hear everything, although I did just pretty much move things around on the screen, but it's still nice to be here. So over this quarter, the OHV program received 20 fiscal incentive grants, and this is for fiscal year 22, quarter 1, also in July. 16 of those were recommended, and then as you can kind of see, and based off of our last, with the board meeting that was held last, we did hold a grant from last quarter because we wanted to get more information on it. It was recommended by the advisory council, the OHV advisory council, but we wanted to get a little bit more clarification before we went forward with it. So it is in this packet for this. As you can see on the second to last page, after the reductions of those 16 grants that the OHV Advisory Council has recommended, funding would be a little bit under $600,000, with a total project value going back into the state of over $1 million. So if there's any questions that I can field, or all of the grants that were not recommended are listed out their reasoning on the last page of the breakout. And then also, if there was any follow-up after the advisory council meeting, it was mentioned as well in the packet and the reasoning behind it. So, but I can field any questions anyone may have. Yeah, go ahead.
The only one I had any question on was number 16. That was a huge one.
Yes.
It kind of seemed like there was a little bit
So
out of whack.
I know. So there was a lot of questions on this, and originally we went with the price reduction of $45,000 because at the beginning of it, so with our grant application, we have a template for a budget, and people don't have to use it, but the project sponsor used our budget and didn't have a ton of information, but then she actually had an alternative one already written out, but wasn't sure if she could include it. So when I followed up with that individual to discuss the 45, she sent both budgets, and the advisory council went and they voted on it. So the thing is that there is a lot of that's going on in that grant, but a lot of it kind of correlates with other items. I know that there was it has to do with mobile application as well as their jamboree, and then cultural clearance. But I think that all of it is going to be forming kind of one cohesive thing at the end, and that's kind of why they were more willing to allow for a kind of a far more detailed budget, because it answered a lot of their questions that they had.
Anything else on that one? I have a question. Can I go to the first one, the Sand Mountain staging area?
Yes, of course.
Can you tell me where this is located? Is this the expanding one of the current locations, or is this a new location?
And I can pull this up just so that I don't want to give any misinformation. So let me pull this up if it's okay. And I will share it.
I've been involved in negotiations on a new location, and I know I just wonder if it's this location, because there's a lot of issues there still.
So we actually did put his coordinates in. So I don't know if everyone can see that.
Is there any description?
Yes, this is the description that I have here. Let me all right. So it looks like they've received approval from the BLM to move forward with this project. It looks as though they've also discussed it with Jonathan Hunt at San Hollow State Park. And the four corners, they included it, and I believe there is also a map of the location where they intend to put this project. Sorry if this is
Okay. Looks like it's adjacent to the tanks there. Or is that the current?
So it looks like it is.
You know where that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. That's perfectly okay.
And there's also this one. It's an overview of it.
Yep. Okay, it's all good.
Great. Any other questions that I can field on this?
Just number 11, it was only rejected because of a secondary signature.
Yes. So that is a requirement that we have, and we've had people not submit their completed application with the secondary signature, but I spoke to the applicant and the lead project manager 3 separate occasions pertaining to the secondary signature. It is something that we're kind of coming to see that it may not be too much of a requirement. It's kind of just come from our RTP grants, because it's usually those recreational trail program grants are usually federal, and they're dealing with federal agencies. And we're finding that there's a lot of movement. When it comes to the fiscal incentive grant, there's not as much movement, or usually we can track down who will be managing the project. But after I spoke with that individual twice the day before the application, and I also emailed her 2 times after the application closed to request that, and we never received it.
So what is the secondary, what is the secondary signature?
The second signature is there for in case, oh, Natalie's also raised her hand. So the secondary signature is there for in case the primary project manager is absent. They can't, they don't finish the project. It's pretty much a backup. We've seen that it's been used multiple times. We've gone with the secondary project manager. This individual who would have been the secondary project manager was a county commissioner. So that's kind of
That's
another.
my question.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a commissioner not
Natalie, it looks like you asked a question.
submitting a signature.
Just a question about, same question about 11, but then 14 and 15, just to confirm, it was all the trails that they listed were not at this time advised to be listed due to safety, or is it just one of the trails?
It was one of the trails, and an advisory council member is from Daggett, and there was an understanding that this application or this digital mapping was not presented to that OHV group in Daggett County until the day of the application was due. So it was kind of, there was no correlation with that. Also, it was the advisory council member who is from Daggett County felt as though there was other trails that they should have prioritized other than what was listed. I know that Chris Haller, who is the OHV program manager, as well as that advisory council member, are reaching out to the Daggett County to discuss further and have them reapply. So I know that that member is going to be kind of heading the project.
So that was just more so miscommunication from the county with the other folks.
More so miscommunication and just feeling as though they wanted to be on the same page with it.
So Rachel, you got like number 11 we talked about without the secondary signature. You have some of these that were carryovers from last quarter. They're now being recommended for funding. It seems to me like 11 could be another one where you get that in place and then it could be considered next quarter. Is that a reasonable approach?
And I've spoken to the county commissioner in question because I went down there a little while ago and he was understanding of it. It just seems like it was a small mishap. That's what we tell a lot of people, and that's why you'll see kind of some repeat applications, is that it's a quarterly process.
Yeah.
We do have kind of just set requirements and a checklist of criteria to meet. And there's another one on here that they had a search and rescue category application, but there was no information on kind of like a short answer asking for more details about how it pertains to search and rescue. So that one was also rejected. And they're going to be told after this, potentially after this meeting, and I say potentially because it's not officially not recommended or approved, that they should reapply and just fill out that information.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you've got the correspondence and working with people. Kevin?
Last one would be number 20 about the reopening illegal road closures. Who closed, what are these roads and who closed them, and is
So
this?
that is kind of one of the questions, and there was a follow-up that I was required to meet is to reach out to the applicant for that information. And there was kind of, and that's why the map and the overview was provided, but ultimately it was just an include after it, but it didn't alter their, kind of their project description. So I didn't include it, but if you would like that information, I can send it on to you.
Well, I guess my only question is, I guess that just seems a little weird, giving money for that. If was it a land agency that closed it, like a Forest Service or BLM that closed the road that the county's trying to reopen? I mean, what's the background behind this?
This is something that we've kind of come across. I mean, OHV use in Utah when it comes to non-OHV users is kind of frowned upon. And a lot of this is what I've been told, it's not what I've seen personally. But people tend to close roads off in areas that they don't want OHV users on. So that has to do with putting branches and rocks and blocking trails, or kind of that's just something that people are running into. I know that this individual has dealt with it and has a lot of research on it. And then also is very read up on what should be open and what should not be open.
So are these legal roads that just private individuals are trying to close off because they don't want them? Okay. It's not a land agency that, like Forest Service, shuts off a road and now they're trying to reopen it.
No, and with this applicant, we've asked for more information in the future so that we can kind of confirm that as well, and then also have that information to provide to others.
I have a question. Who is going to determine legal or illegal close?
So generally, whoever the owner of the land is, so BLM, Forest Service, they have travel management plans, and I don't know too much about it. It's kind of always been a touchy subject. That they'll open and close different areas, and a lot of these individuals who are OHV recreationalists, they keep up on it, and because they have to do a lot of legwork to keep roads open or trails open that are designated to OHV use. So pretty much it is usually coming from BLM, Forest Service, or whoever is managing the land.
Isn't there wording in the contract that requires them to follow rules and ordinances, existing rules and ordinances? So they're bound by that anyway. But I think there is an opportunity if we do discover that there's an issue with that, that we can pull it, funding, right?
And the thing is that with this grant, there is the ability to receive 75% of funding up front. But if they're not following the guidelines that we set forth in the contract that they sign, I think that there shouldn't be any reason why we couldn't request the funding returned to us or not pay it out at the end of it. Because when I do a closeout, I check everything.
So there's 16 of them, right?
Yes, 16 that were recommended this quarter and one from past quarter that we have.
Okay, I will make a motion that we approve all the green ones in our board packet for approval.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
One comment to the earlier point about bumping number 11 to a future consideration. Do we need to make a statement about that now?
See why that would be something that I'd be handling.
So if it's not recommended, then it'll be kind of automatically followed up on. Is that right, Rachel?
Yes.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Next, we have Susan up. Tell us about water grant.
Sure. Look at the DNR computer and look at the mischief I could have.
Thank you.
Well, it smells good in here. I'll try to
Good
be.
timing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the agenda today and letting me speak to you about our land and water grants. This is a continuation of kind of where we left off last time. PROA was approved. This is the other 7 that approved. We've done an initial evaluation of the applications and they all are eligible. So we are recommending all the grants we received this year for approval and submission to the National Park Service. And from this point, if you all approve them, then we go on getting the paperwork ready for submission to the National Park Service. That takes some time and some money. They have to do environmental work and things. But if you have any questions about those, let me know.
I've got a question. So you got some in green and some in red. That's just for just to make it easier to read, right?
Yeah.
Not a yes and a no. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Okay.
Good question, Kevin. I had the same.
You got a skate park for you there in Ephraim?
So Sanpete County, I probably have to recuse myself on voting on that one because I helped with that application, so.
So noted.
And I want to also make note that I live in Mount Pleasant City and I had some influence on making sure the application was sent in from Mount Pleasant City, so I probably should. I'm not on the council, but I do live there and I will directly benefit if that happens.
Yeah, Justin mentioned you were in support. And then bragged about the convex center.
So if we don't approve it, you'll be very unhappy.
What if we change the name of it? All right, any questions for Susan? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the land and water.
I do two motions because I worry about a quorum. If both of us don't vote, does that not create?
Do we have a quorum problem?
Do we have a quorum?
Still have a quorum, do we not? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If two of us don't, we're still okay.
Yeah, good. We're still good.
Okay.
You've got 7.
Okay, just wanted to clarify, make sure.
I'm sitting next to Claudia, so I probably shouldn't vote.
We'll give you the personal privilege.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the Land and Water Conservation Fund 2021 grants as presented by Susan.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion provided by Brent, second.
Second.
Who's arm wrestling here? Okay, Doug won. Second by Doug. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed?
One abstention.
And 2 abstentions. Got
We
that,
get a vote
Amber?
from Natalie. Yep. We're good.
She gave a thumb up.
Okay, good. Thanks, Natalie.
Okay, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Okay, Amber, did we cover the agenda so far?
Yes, so we just need to set the November meeting date, but I know we have some conflicts that were mentioned before, and I don't know if they've resolved since then. So if we look at the November calendar, we don't have to stick to the, like every third Thursday of the quarter. Like it can be literally any day in the quarter. So November always poses a problem because we've got the holiday for Veterans Day, which I think will be observed on the 15th. And then the following week will be Thanksgiving, which will be observed the 25th and 26th.
So maybe earlier in the month is better?
Yes.
The 11th,
So
perhaps?
Veterans.
we could do the 11th. We could also do the prior week, but I think there is a conference.
What is Veterans Day?
I think Veterans Day is always on the 11th. I don't think-
I thought it observed the following Monday.
I think it's one of those.
Let's find out.
Yeah. I think
The week of the 8th is the Utah Association of Counties Conference, so I think that would pull out a couple folks.
if the 11th's on a weekend, then it would go to the Friday. If it's
Yeah.
during the week.
It's on Thursday. Okay.
Yeah,
It will
I'm
be
having
Thursday.
trouble with all of them. Yeah, because no one cares.
We can have it on a Wednesday.
We care.
Maybe not on a Friday, because no one shows up to work on Fridays. Except for me, I'm always here.
Another Friday.
So, but we could do literally any day, we could be, and it could carry into December, it could be at the end of October.
Let's go Halloween and do a costume.
Back to October.
Time crunch.
What about Wednesday the 10th? Is that too close to Veterans Day for activities?
The 10th of November.
Was there a problem?
That'll be the UAC conference for some of us.
Okay, that week.
And that's in St. George, so I'm gonna go to that.
Oh, the val, oh, wait, no.
And what was the week of the 15th? What was the issue there?
Now there's no issue, because I was just, in my head, we were observing the November 11th holiday. I made that.
That's Thanksgiving week, right?
No, the following week, the 25th and 26th will be, and I will also be off school that week.
Let's go with the 18th if it's clear for everyone.
17th or the 18th, something like that?
That's for me.
That is the bus tour.
I'm good with either of
I
those.
mean, that just might affect. I mean, I don't know if you guys were gonna roll.
It's those 2 days, the 17th and 18th.
17th and 18th is the bus tour. And then the 10th and 11th is the Raptor.
So we can look at the 28th of October.
Or you could do it on a Tuesday.
What about the 16th?
Yeah.
Is that too close to the bus tour?
I think we could do
I'm
that.
good with the 16th.
Before we put that in stone, what about a location? Could we get out in the field? Go someplace?
So is that the bus, that is the bus
That's the
tour
week
then?
of the bus
The
tour.
17th and 18th.
Where is it?
It is in the southeast.
So we could
So
go
we could
to
go
Southeast
down.
Park.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to Utah Raptor.
Yeah, I'd like to go there. Is there anything you see yet?
Well, we could do
Dead Horse Point.
There'll be a hole.
There'll be a rail,
For the
rail.
drill, I've seen a lot of drill rigs, that's all right.
The rig will be gone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We could do it at Dead Horse. We've got a conference room there.
And then do a
they
site
do it.
visit to.
Can we get a yurt the night before?
Sure, probably.
What the night
A
before?
yurt.
Yeah,
We'll look into it.
we'll bring cots in, we'll all sleep in the same one. I like that.
So are we saying November 16th, Tuesday?
Tuesday the 16th.
Any comments online?
I'm all in favor of Southeast Utah.
Yeah. So am I, especially if Scott brings his fancy shirt with dinosaurs over.
The Dead Horse Point.
I will make the arrangements, thank you.
What time we thinking?
For travel, we probably want to start a little bit later.
So we do, got a late morning start and then have
Yeah, we could
meeting and then lunch and then finish.
We could maybe
And
do
then
an
a field
11
trip.
a.m. start time and then excursion in the afternoon.
Or could people travel down the night before and start first thing?
Mondays are a little rough for us here, but we can probably make.
I think we could do that.
Are there places to
Jeff's
stay?
nodding, I'm nodding.
Are there places to stay in that area?
Green River or Moab.
Yeah.
Green River's not far, it's still cheaper than
Or maybe
Moab.
at the park, we can look into that too.
November might be tough, but
They're pretty busy.
Yeah.
November.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
but it is the week before Thanksgiving, so we'll look into it.
Yeah, we'll see what I can make happen.
In that case, we do more of a morning.
Yeah, you could.
And then excursions in the afternoon and then everyone breaks.
Awesome.
Okay. I will make it happen.
Bring a trail map for us. See if we can get Russ out.
Yeah.
Afternoon ride.
Hey, there's plenty of trails in Utah Raptors, so.
So then we just have other business if anyone needs other business.
Okay, any other business we need to address as a board? Just lunch?
Whether or not former board members can attend the Raptors excursion.
You're welcome. You
It's
can-
expected.
Yes, maybe even required. We'll see.
Come as a visitor.
I think they're on until replaced. Isn't that what you said?
Well, 90 days is what I was told officially that we can do it. I don't think we can go beyond that.
So we could
But we should have that information hopefully in a couple weeks.
They could stay on as advisory,
Yeah.
not ex parte was the other, ex officio. So they could be ex officio advisors for the November meeting.
Not voting members,
I
but you
like
can
that.
still,
We could be ex officio privileged.
yes, privileged.
So
Other terms is, that's
were you still gonna take care of I-9 and all that
Yes,
today too?
so we can break and discuss all of that stuff, so let's, yeah.
all right. Just the last thanks to Jeff, Scott, Dave, and staff for all you do. We really appreciate everything that's going on and the seamless work you do and all the stuff behind the scenes.
No.
Anyway, big thanks to you. And
No, sir.
then the last thing, I guess we accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Kevin, done.
I'm sorry, I gotta
Thank you,
go.
everybody.
Natalie, enjoy your virtual lunch.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody please stay. There's plenty of food. Help
My
us.
wife said if there are any parting gifts that she would request
She
a car.
offers some little swag.
Yeah, she requested a new car.
A new car, huh?
You know what? It's already checked a bunch of those off.
I know, so now he has to focus.
That's funny.